Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto sneaks into library chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by TheElderOne and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Naruto. Try the clone jutsu, Naruto, said a man with a scar running the bridge of his nose. A blue-eyed, blonde-haired child of about 10 looked up and grinned. He had already successfully performed the transformation and substitution jutsu. But here came the real challenge. But he still had to face it like with any challenge. The other two monitors gazed at him coldly, like many of the villagers, for a reason Naruto did not know. Iruka was the only looking at him with a kind of hope. Hi, Iruka-sensei. He formed his hands into the right-hand sign, and focused chakra into the jutsu. Come on, this has to work. He gave a shout, and the air around him swirled as chakra, invisible to the naked eye, circled him. There was a loud poof and a large puff of smoke, large enough to blanket the entire room. The monitors coughed as the smoke cleared and looked over to the blonde standing next to several poor excuses for clones. An immediate fail, even with the lenient Iruka. Naruto knew this, and sighed as his clones puffed out of existence. Well damn, but this is my first genin exam, maybe I'll get it right next time. But still, all that training for nothing, he thought forlornly, looking back at the monitors. Iruka smiled sadly at the blonde, and the monitors shook their heads. Naruto read their expressions, which told him their thoughts. You failed. I'm sorry, Naruto, we can't pass you with you being able to perform the 3 Academy jutsu. You fail, said Iruka, trying to smile reassuringly at Naruto, who wouldn't meet his eyes. The blonde nodded, and slowly walked out of the room. He ignored the teasings of other students as he exited the academy and headed to his apartment. About halfway there, he came to a small park with a bench on the edge. He sat down in it, sighing. There's always next year, I guess, he said, crossing his arms and gazing up at the clouds. Always next year, but would he be able to master that clone jutsu? It was so hard. And even though he had put in countless hours of work into perfecting it, the jutsu was still just out of his reach. He never seemed to gain any progress. It was like he had stagnated just an inch away from actually summoning a clone. It was frustrating and depressing, especially if he thought too much about like he was now. He shook his head after a while. He needed to prank someone to get his mind off things. Naruto smiled slightly as he thought of the possibilities. Would he paint the sides of buildings? Release the dogs from the pound? Throw water balloons? As he sat there, thinking, a small dog wearing a vest with a seal resembling a frowning face ran by, carrying something orange in its mouth. Naruto was broke from his thoughts as the dog seemed to mumble though its load. Damn Kakashi. Always forgets this thing. I really need to bite his ankle someday. The mumbling faded away as the dog began to get farther away. Naruto frowned and then grinned. This could be entertaining. He raced after the dog, who was heading toward one of the training fields. He kept a discreet distance, or so he thought. The dog finally stopped at a training field with a large stone set in the front of it. Naruto had seen the stone before but had never really thought about why it was there. He decided to hide in one of the trees surrounding the small clearing as the dog approached a man standing in front of the stone. The man wore a mask and had gravity-defying, white hair. He was a shinobi and looked high-ranking because of the flak jacket he wore. The dog spat out the item as if it were poison, which turned out to be a book. There you go, Kakashi. There's that damned book you wanted, muttered the dog gruffly before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto's eyes widened. Where the hell did that dog go? The man's eyes turned into upturned hues when he picked up the book, and he began to read. What was in that book? Military secrets? Powerful jutsu? What could it be? As the blonde crossed his arms and thought about it, the man, Kakashi, opened the book and started to giggle strangely as he read. The giggling broke Naruto's concentration, and he glared in the direction of Kakashi. Why the hell can't he shut up? He whispered irately. Kakashi easily heard it with his attuned senses. He made an unfamiliar hand sign, and a perfect replica of himself puffed into existence right next to him. Naruto felt a surge of envy. Damn it, how can everyone do the clone jutsu but me? The clone seemed to be annoyed about something to Naruto, and the original shook it off and nodded in the blonde's direction. Oh wait, OH, The clone vanished and reappeared right behind Naruto. Hello there. Don't remember inviting a brat like you, drawled the clone lazily. Naruto's eyes bugged, and he struggled as the clone grabbed him by the waist and disappeared. As they reappeared in center of the village, the clone dropped the blonde unceremoniously to the ground, and Naruto stood shakily. Whatever that guy had done had left him dizzy, and Naruto soon fell back on his rear. The clone eye smiled at him and made the same sign the original had to create it. It disappeared, and left Naruto still dizzy and very annoyed. He got back up, stumbling slightly, and frowned at the spot that the clone had been. That had certainly hurt, and he certainly wanted to get back at the white-haired guy. Several ideas popped into his head, and he filed away the better ones for later. Right now he wanted a chiraku. When he arrived to the small ramen shop, Iruka was there, chatting with Ayam, the pretty waitress. Naruto grinned and sat beside his teacher. What ya talking about, you two? He asked innocently, the impish grin still on his face. Iruka reddened and sputtered, but Ayame laughed lightly and took their orders. Naruto teased Iruka a few more times before stopping, and then he rested his head in his hands. Man, I wish I'd passed. There's always next year, Iruka reassured. Yeah. I've been telling that to myself all day, and it doesn't get any better. He looked sideways at Iruka. I just wish my clones could stand or pick up a pebble, or do something besides just wobble like a bunch of ramen. Iruka frowned. A clone can't pick a pebble anyway. They're intangible. In what? They're nothing but air. Actually, they're not real at all. It's genjutsu. Where'd you get the idea a clone could pick something up? Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Well, I was kinda sneaking around this one ninja guy, but I was caught by his clone which took me back to middle of the city. It dropped me hard too. You probably deserved it, said Iruka, chuckling. But I think he wasn't using the clone jutsu like what you're learning. He was using the shadow clone jutsu. The clones from that are completely solid. When can I learn it? Asked Naruto enthusiastically. Only Jonin can learn it, and besides, the scroll it's in is always locked up in Hokage Tower. Naruto's face fell, and a cloud of disappointment formed over him. Ah man. I thought I had a shot. Iruka ruffled his hair playfully. And you still do. I know you'll think of some way to use the clone jutsu. Their food came then, and the rest of conversation was cut off by the slurping of noodles. However, in the back of Naruto's mind, a plan started to form. Naruto peeked around a corner, the shinobi library just a block ahead. There had to be some mention of the shadow clone jutsu in the library for shinobi even if it was locked in Hokage Tower. He was willing to try to sneak into the library, but there was no way he'd ever be convinced to sneak in the tower. And this was his last chance. He was desperate. He had a basic plan: transform and go into the library and ask for the shadow clone jutsu. If the library didn't have it, he'd walk out. If it did well, he would improvise. That was his plan. He pondered on who to transform into before he settled on that Kakashi guy. In a puff of smoke, he was Kakashi and was striding purposefully toward the library. When Naruto neared the front desk, the librarian noticed him and smiled. Kakashi-san, it's been a while since you've came. How's it been? Naruto almost didn't answer, not quite realizing he was transformed, but the librarian said Kakashi's name again. Then he realized she was talking to him. HM? Oh. It's been fine, Yuri. It's been fine, Yuri. How about you? Naruto didn't know what else to say, but the librarian didn't think anything of it. Fine. The kids are in the academy, Shiro is off on a mission. I wanted to work somewhere, and there was a position open here. The hours are great, the pay decent, the people sometimes irritating. Oh, I've gone and rambled again. What do you need, Kakashi-san? Naruto, who had tuned out somewhere at the academy, jerked his head up and cleared his throat awkwardly. Do you have the shadow clone jutsu in here by any chance? Yuri frowned and looked him squarely in the eye. You know full well that it's locked in the Hokage Tower. Don't you know it already anyway? You learned it when you were 12 or something. Naruto was stumped for a response. He was silent for a moment before stammering, yeah, but I need to see something, about the jutsu. Something very important. And that is? Man, she's nosy. Stuttered Naruto, grasping at straws now. What could he say? He didn't know anything about the jutsu, and so he couldn't lie about and risk getting something wrong. That'd give him away instantly. He was silent again for a longer time, and then he hit upon something. I want to see how it's different from the clone jutsu the genin learn. Why? To compare the two in case, I ever have a student that asks me about it. You're pulling my leg, Kakashi. You've never passed a single team placed under you. Passed? What does she mean by that? But I have a feeling that in next few years that I'll get one. You never know about me, Yuri laughed. That's certainly true. She looked thoughtful for a second. Well, I do have a copy of the shadow clone jutsu. It's in the locked archives. I could let you take a look, but you can't take it out now. Naruto bowed his head, relieved that he had persuaded the woman. That's fine. I just need 10 minutes. As she led him to the giant, circular door that led to the archives, Naruto silently cheered in victory. Lee, a boy with shaggy black hair and round eyes with extremely large eyebrows above them, slammed his bloody fist against the log he had been punching and kicking for the past 4 hours. He was panting and counting each punch. 1,201. 1,202. 1,203. He faltered, and he fell back. He looked at the log, and rose slowly due to exhaustion, the strenuous training he went through every day. If I cannot do 2,000 punches, then I will do 2,000 kicks. He started again, now kicking the log repetitively. 20. 21. 22. As he counted, the boy was reminded of the bullying he received at the hands of the other students of the academy. They called him names, shoved him, and did everything they possibly could to make his life miserable. Even the teachers told him to give up, that he would never make to be a shinobi. As he counted, tears started to flow. It wasn't his fault he couldn't mold chakra. Maybe, just maybe, he could make it on just taijutsu. The tears hit the ground, along with some drops of blood. He would train until the day he died, no matter the conditions. He shouted and kicked at the log with all his strength, or what was left of it. The kick knocked him off balance, and he tumbled to the ground. He lay there, staring up at the log. The bullying came to forefront again, and he curled up into a ball, crying pitifully. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am some hopeless reject. Maybe I will never, he choked. Unknown to him, a man wearing a green jumpsuit and the same large eyebrows was watching from a distance. The man had seen the boy at the academy whenever he and Kakashi had stopped by. Kakashi had said that this particular boy couldn't mold chakra, and the man had felt sympathy for the boy. He himself was lousy at ninjutsu, but he didn't have it as bad as the boy. He had accidentally disrupted the boy's lesson before, and was awed by his fierce determination. Now his brow was furrowed as he heard the boy moan and whine softly. That was slowly draining from him. He jumped over to the boy was laying, and put his hand on his shoulder. Come on, now, show them they're wrong. You've got to stick with it. He encouraged, squeezing his shoulder. The boy shrugged him off. But they are right. I will never be a shinobi. I cannot even mold chakra, argued the boy pessimistically, curling further into a ball. The man frowned, and replied, then prove them wrong. Become a special shinobi, one that only uses taijutsu. Do you not think I have already tried that? It does not work that easily. I cannot even get someone to teach me. No one would teach me anyway. Look at Dash. I'll teach you. The boy looked up at the man, who smiled. I'll become your sensei, your inspiration. The boy wiped his eyes, and looked sadly at the ground. You do not have to do that. I can manage Dash. Look at what just happened. You nearly just lost that unstoppable determination of yours, determination that I look for in my students. Ah, really? Yes. The man offered the boy his hand, and he helped him up. Thank you, Dash. My guy at your service. The man smiled largely at him, and gave him a thumbs up. The boy wiped his eyes again, and replied, Rock Lee, Guy-sensei. Okay, Lee. Now I have a question for you. Do you know what the power of youth is? No, sir. Guy smiled at him, and began to explain. Well, it's the Yakumo. A girl with light brown hair glared up at an older man, her uncle. He was standing next to the third Hokage, an old war veteran and leader of Konoha. He was conversing lowly with Hokage about the girl in front of him, making sure she couldn't hear him. They were in the Hokage's office, evening sunlight streaming through the window. Yakumo's powers are out of control, and I don't know the problem exactly, though I have a theory. But anyway, we need to do something. Her parents are dead because of her powers. The uncle leaned in and whispered in the old man's ear, and the Hokage's eyes widened as he heard. Are you sure, Unkai-sama? Not positive. I wanted you to check, answered Unkai, and the Hokage nodded. He walked over to the girl, who turned her glare towards him. I know you're talking about me. I don't want to be here, and I'd rather be at home doing things. She was quiet toward the end, remembering the fire, and her parents screaming. Why had Unkaiaji rescued her instead of her parents? She was just a kid. The Hokage smiled gently, grandfatherly at her. You can't do that now. I need to see something. It won't take long and won't hurt. She looked at him mistrustfully, but slowly relaxed. Good, now close your eyes. She did so, and the old man placed his hand on her head. At this, she tensed slightly, but Hokage softly reassured her. He focused chakra to his hand, and slowly pushed his way into her psyche. Once there, he looked around. It was dark, for one, and extremely offsetting. Something was just not right. He scanned the area that was visible, and slowly began to feel something that hadn't visited him since the last Shinobi War. Fear. He slowly turned, and glimpsed a shady figure standing 5 feet away. The Hokage leapt back surprisingly fast for a man his age, and lowered himself into a fighting stance. Who are you? The figure chuckled darkly, and stepped into the light. The Hokage couldn't help but gasp. This thing appeared to be some gross culmination of the girl's dark emotions. It had the same hair, except it was shaggy and greasy, the same clothes, except for the poor condition they were in, and the same hair clip in the exact position Yakumo had it. He took a step back, and demanded, What are you? I, rumbled the demon, am the destruction of Konoha. I am the reaper of vengeance for this little girl who lost her parents. It chuckled. Because of me. Unkai-sama told me that something unnatural started that fire, and he sent me here to investigate. Unkai? That old fart? If he really thinks that you can stop me, he might want to rethink his plan. It laughed lowly. Actually, nothing can stop me. Nothing mortal anyway. You might as well release me and get things over with. It laughed again, and lunged for the old man without warning, who quickly exited Yakumo's psyche. He stood panting, as he recovered from the near-death experience. The girl had paled and begun shivering. Unkai knelt by her and tried to console her, but she jerked at his touch. Don't touch me. A sad expression settled on the older man's face, and he looked down. The Hokage put a hand on Yakumo's shoulder. She tried to shake it off, but he held her firmly. It's all right, child. Nothing to be afraid of, he assured. She stopped crying after a few minutes of consoling, and looked at the Hokage with watery eyes. I saw and heard everything, Hokage-sama. That thing, it killed my parents. It looked like me. She looked down. I killed my parents. Now, Yakumo, don't say that, said Unkai, kneeling in front of her. She glared at him. I may have killed my parents, but you didn't try to rescue them. And you knew about the demon. Why? She choked and repeated weakly, why? Unkai sighed gloomily. I didn't rescue your parents because they loved you. Yakumo shot him a puzzled yet angry look. They would have wanted me to rescue you instead of them because you are the hope of the clan and their beloved child. If I had saved them, though, and you have died, they would have been furious. He smiled slightly. Your mother was terrifying when angry, and your father, my brother, would have never forgiven me. He bowed lowly. Can you forgive me, Yakumo-han? The girl stared at him for a while, and eventually smiled softly. Come on, uncle. No need to bow. I forgive you. She sighed. I see the reasons why you saved me, and thank you. The Hokage smiled at the girl. She's wise beyond her years. She'll make a great clan leader, he thought. She looked up at him. What do we do about the monster inside my mind? She asked bluntly. Not to mention direct as well. A definite leader, added the Hokage. I have a student that is a master at sealing techniques. He could possibly help. Time skip. Next genin exams. Naruto had chosen to wake up earlier than usual that morning, nervousness getting the better of him. He looked in the dresser and pulled out his orange jacket and pants. He frowned at them. The color orange had sort of faded on him. He'd taken to darker colors, but knowing himself, he kept the orange clothes thinking that he'd return to that bright fashion later. Over the past year, Naruto had been training non-stop, his notorious pranking spree coming to an end which relieved many of the village's citizens. He had also grown over the past year, and was tall enough to look Shino in the eye, the tallest in his class. He could easily take down civilian students and few of the shinobi ones. Except for that damned arrogant Sasuke. They had drawn a few times, but Naruto had never squeezed a defeat from him. He wore dark blue pants much like those worn by the chunin and jonin of Konoha with a weapon holster sewed onto the right and a dark jacket over a black shirt. His bright clothes lie forlornly in the dresser. I'll wear them when I'm off duty inside the village, Naruto told himself. He opened a window, looked around, and jumped out. At the academy, the blonde wasn't surprised when he was the first there. Even Irika hadn't arrived. With his nervous energy getting the better of him again, he opened a window and tried to land gracefully on the floor. What he actually did was fall on his face and knocked over a chair that landed on his head. He groaned and rubbed his head morosely. He fixed the chair, feeling the knot on his head rising. The first to arrive was predictably Irika about 5 minutes later. As he entered, he started at the sight of Naruto, but an amused look came onto his face as he saw the open window. Got in through the window, Naruto? Seems like I forgot to lock them, he chuckled. Naruto grinned, and then Irika saw the knot. What did you do? Knock your head while you were coming in? When I fell out of the window, I knocked over a chair, and it fell on me. I kinda feel dumb. Irika chuckled a bit more and went to organize his chaotic mess of a desk. He then realized another detail. Naruto? Where's your classic jumpsuit? Did you forget or something? The blonde shrugged. I really don't like bright colors anymore, but I kept it just in case I ever change back. Which is gonna happen sooner or later. Irika nodded, liking the forward thinking. Confident that you're gonna pass today, Naruto? Asked Irika. Naruto grinned wickedly. Absolutely. Irika shook his head and chuckled some more, and went back to organizing his desk. The second to arrive a half hour later was Shino, a tall, creepy boy with dark sunglasses and a high-collared jacket that covered most of his lower face. The boy raised an eyebrow at the blonde, who grinned back. Shino seemed to narrow his eyes, and head toward the back of the room. Next was Sasuke, who glared at Naruto who glared back. The two of them were rivals, and Naruto always wanted to just go all out with him and use his new technique, but he was saving it for the genin exams. The draws were good enough for Naruto, not to mention they showed him that he was Sasuke's equal. Hey Dobe, ready to fail the next exam? You seem ready to go, said Sasuke, sliding into a desk in the middle row. To hell I'm failing. I'm going to become a ninja before you and be the greatest shinobi ever. And then I will become the Hokage, retorted Naruto, putting his hands behind his head. He still hadn't given up on his Hokage dream, but knew he needed to become a talented shinobi first, and that was going to take blood, sweat and tears. And more sweat. Sasuke snorted and sulked moodily. Naruto rolled his eyes. Always in the dumps. If he'd cheer up a bit more, he'd be great. Kiba was next, and all he did was give the blonde a grin before sitting next to Shino, who he whispered to. After that were Shikamaru, the lazy genius, and Choji, the gentle giant except when called fat or ate his food. Then that person needed to run very fast and very far. Shikamaru had done the same as Shino, lazily lifting an eyebrow, and then mumbling something about troublesome blondes. Choji had smiled and quickly followed his friend as he munched on chips. The next pair to enter was the loudest girls of the class, Sakura and Ino. They were arguing, again, and Naruto could catch as of Sasuke's name. He plugged his ears with his fingers, hoping they would quit, but when they started to sit next to him, he snapped. Go sit somewhere else for Christ's sake. He shouted at them. I don't want to deal with your crap when there's seats next to Sasuke. Go sit there and annoy him. The two girls regarded him in surprise for a moment before sitting next to Sasuke, who threw a malevolent glance at him. Ah, shut up, Sasuke. Geez, sometimes he wondered why he had liked Sakura in the first place. He had had a crush on her during the first year of the academy, but quickly realized that she couldn't see anyone but Sasuke and had a particularly violent personality. Definitely not girlfriend material, but if she lightened up, Sakura would be a great friend. 5 minutes before class started, or for Naruto, the Genin exams, the Hyuga heiress Hinata walked in meekly. Naruto grinned as he saw her. He remembered the day he had saved her from the bullies. Hey! Stop that! Stop being mean to her, yeah? What are you going to do about it? Naruto quickly made a hand sign, and the group of boys quickly stepped away from the small form of Hinata. He's going to use a jutsu. Hell yeah, I am! A puff of smoke erupted from several spots behind the blonde, and several ghosts of clones appeared. At first the group was stunned, but quickly the shock gave into laughter. Diversion! Shouted Naruto, jumping down from a tree above the boys and landing on the back of one. As soon as the boy's head hit the ground, he was unconscious. The other two tried to tackle Naruto, but he had rolled to the side. He grabbed one as they lunged and pulled him behind himself and punched the other in the face as he sailed straight for him. Naruto quickly turned to finish the other one, but found he had escaped. He could hear him howling and crying for his mommy. The blonde grinned and walked over to Hinata, who was slowly getting up. He offered a hand. Need help? She raised her head and looked at it, and slowly took it. Her hand was small and soft, and he pulled her up. You okay? She nodded, raising her lavender eyes to his. She has really pretty eyes. Prettier than Sakura-chan's Sakura's. Thank you. What's your name? She asked. Naruto grinned, but it quickly faded as he heard another pair of footsteps coming in their direction, and by the sound of it, the person was running. Gotta go, said Naruto quickly, scurrying. As he ran, however, he shouted over his shoulder, by the way, it's Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto smiled. His crush had moved from Sakura to Hinata now, and at least this time it wasn't one-sided, but she was very shy and blushed every time Naruto came close, and Naruto was actually a little hesitant to ask her on a date for the first time in his life. Not a real date, more like a date at a Chiraku's or something. So he had to wait, something he never enjoyed. Hello, Hinata, he greeted, waving at her. She blushed and waved timidly back. Hello, Naruto-kun, she replied, and then she noticed what he wore. What happened to those orange clothes? Huh? Oh, they're at home. I'm wearing this until I get tired of it. Hinata nodded and took her seat, and then Iruka rose from his desk. Good morning, class. As you know, the Genin exams are today, and before we start class, I want to know if any of you are willing to try to enter them? There was silence, and slowly one raised his hand, Naruto. Sasuke rolled his eyes, and Hinata smiled slightly. Naruto, are you sure? Positive. Alright. Go to room 252. I'm sure you can find it. Aren't you going to be a monitor? Asked Naruto. No, not this year. Sorry. Naruto felt his stomach drop. Iruka had always been a comforting presence during the Genin exam. Naruto would miss him. Wrestling his own nervousness again, Naruto nodded to let Iruka know he understood, and exited the classroom. In the waiting room, Naruto paced anxiously. He wasn't the only one to do so. Another boy with a bowl haircut and a green jumpsuit also paced, but would randomly stopped and did a blindingly fast set of push-ups and sit-ups. Why is he doing that? Won't he get tired for the taijutsu part? When the boy took off and did a set of laps around the room, Naruto shrugged and looked around the room. Another student was leaning in the corner, arms crossed and an unreadable expression on his face. He was very tall, about 6 feet, and looked to be the oldest in the room, maybe about 14. He wore a gray battle kimono with a white waist sash, a katana strapped to it. He had shoulder-length shaggy black hair and dark blue eyes. His face was angular and handsome, but surprisingly there were no fangirls around. He seemed to have an intimidating aura. A scar ran from underneath his left eye and curved inward and back out, giving a grotesque impression of a tear streak. Naruto immediately thought this guy was the equivalent of Sasuke, but was proven wrong when another student approached him. The teen did not grunt or leer at the other, but instead made polite conversation. The conversation didn't last long as the tall boy didn't try to prolong it, but he still answered every question respectfully. Naruto frowned. Hey, who's that guy over there? He asked the girl, pointing at him. That's Tamitsu, she answered simply. Don't you know? No, I'm from the younger class. Oh. You look older. Not to mention you look like you train non-stop like Lee over there. She jerked a thumb toward the boy in the jumpsuit. She grinned. He's always funny. Naruto grinned with her. I bet he is. Anyway, back to my question. How does this Tamitsu act? The girl shrugged. He's polite and kind, if a bit distant. Also very humble. Not to mention a looker. She gazed longingly at Tamitsu, but then shook her head. He never flirts though. Some think he swings for the other team, though I doubt it. In that regard, he and Sasuke are alike, thought Naruto. Thanks, no problem. Naruto returned his gaze to the team. He noted the katana. Huh. Wonder if he's any good with it or not. I wonder if he'll be on my team or not. Tamitsu looked strong, and if the girl wasn't lying, he wouldn't be hard to get along with. As long as he passed, Naruto hoped he would be placed with the tall boy. Another name was called, and his nervous energy returned. He started to pace again. He stopped when he saw Hyuga, a boy with long brown pulled back with a headband. Huh. Another Hyuga. Wonder what he's HOLYSHIT. Naruto ducked and narrowly dodged a kunai that hit with a loud thunk right where his head would have been. God damn it. What was that about? He shouted. Sorry. It slipped from my finger. Apologized the girl with her hair in buns. She came over and picked up the kunai. She wore a sleeveless pink Chinese shirt and dark green pants. Naruto frowned at her. What do you mean it slipped from your finger? She smiled sheepishly. Well, I usually twirl a kunai on my index finger, like this. She did so, and Naruto carefully watched it as he said, Be careful that darn thing. Nearly took my eye out. He looked at the Hyuga boy again. Hey, what's his name? I'm new here, and I think you repay me for nearly murdering me. Oh, Niji? Well, I hate to say it, but he's a bit of an ass sometimes. Going on about fate this and fate that, and how the Hyuga are superior. He does have a few good points, but he'd be less arrogant, he'd be nice enough. He's also good looking, at least to me. She paused. Don't know why I told you that, not unless you go that way. Naruto made a face. Eck. No, I don't thank you, just teasing. But please don't tell him, alright? She pleaded. The blonde waved it away. No. I just hope I don't get placed on a team with him. He smiled. It's been nice talking. What's your name? Tenten Jinta. And yours? Naruto Uzumaki. She frowned, but then her name was called, and she went into the testing room. Pacing again, Naruto spotted a girl with long brown hair wearing an orange kimono sitting quietly on a bench next to the wall. She had the insignia of a clan on the front of her kimono. Before he could talk to her, her name was called. His name was always at the bottom of the list, and so there were only a few people left in the room when Naruto's name was called. A monitor waited on the other side of the door and explained, Welcome to the Genin exams. First, you take the written part of the exam and then move on to the taijutsu. The last part is ninjutsu. If you make a passing grade overall, you earn one of these. He tapped his headband. Got it? Got it. The written portion went poorly for the blonde, who expected nothing less. He hoped he could do well enough on the other two parts to make up for it. For taijutsu, he was led to a small room with a sparring ring. A chunin stood at the center, and when the chunin saw the blonde, he took up a basic stance. Naruto stepped into the small sparring ring, and he said, Are you ready, Uzumaki? Mouth too dry to speak, Naruto nodded. The chunin threw a punch directly at the blonde's gut, and Naruto sidestepped and jabbed at his opponent's face. The man bent his head back, but it still grazed him on the chin. The chunin swept his leg under Naruto, causing him to fall. Naruto caught himself by standing on his hands, however, and delivered a kick under the man's chin. The man grinned slightly after recovering, and the two traded blows for about a minute, either gaining the upper hand. This changed, however, when the man feinted with a punch. Naruto fell for it and dodged, only to get his legs swept out from under him again. His opponent tried to follow up with a stomp, but Naruto rolled and crouched. The man turned to face the blonde, and Naruto jumped up and landed a hard uppercut on his jaw, the full power of his legs and arms behind it. The man swayed for a moment, but recovered. He shook his head, and charged the blonde, who waited anticipatorily. Wait now! As the man reached him, Naruto jumped straight up, and kicked the man on the top of his head, causing him to fall unconscious. The blonde was worried for a second. Hope I didn't kill him. He was relieved when the man stirred and slowly rose. They met each other's eyes, and the man started to laugh. Gotta admit, brat, you're the first to knock me out. You definitely passed this with flying colors, he said, and Naruto beamed. But don't let get to your head. That boy in the jumpsuit was a monster. He made me look like fool. The man cricked his neck. Anyway, get back into that room. The last part will begin shortly. He saw the blonde pale, and chuckled. Guess ninjutsu isn't your strong suit. Naruto shook his head and exited the room, sighing a breath mixed with relief and dread. Come on, I know I can use the transformation and substitution, and I pretty much have the shadow clone jutsu down. Still can't help being nervous though, he thought, sitting down on the ground in one of the corners of the room. There were a few students that had taken longer on the taijutsu portion, and so there was a bit of a wait. He tried to calm his nervousness and succeeded, but then the exhaustion from fighting and the lack of sleep he's gotten crashed into him. Naruto leaned his head back against the wall and fell asleep. His dream was unsettling. In it, he was wandering in darkness, not knowing what direction he was facing. All there was darkness. Then something made itself known, something big, something dangerous, something feral. Uzumaki, Naruto. Your turn. Naruto jerked awake with a snort and stumbled up. He looked around and saw that all the other students had left, or had Konoha headbands. Uzumaki, the blonde shook his head, and entered the testing room. Inside there were 3 monitors sitting at a table, their faces blank. He stood in front of the monitors, and one ordered, use the transformation jutsu. Transform into anything you like, as long as it's appropriate. Naruto smirked, made a hand sign, and changed into the 3rd Hokage. It was perfect. All right. Perfect, said the man. Another one, a woman, said, now use substitution. The blonde nodded, and quickly replaced himself with a log and back again. She nodded. All right, 2 down, 1 to go, mused Naruto, gulping. The final one, the clone jutsu, ordered the last one. Naruto obliged, and soon 5 clones appeared in a puff of smoke. The monitor scrutinized them for a moment before nodding. You passed this part. And we have the results from the other portions as well. The woman picked up a paper from the table and read, you received a 70 on the written part. Really? Sheesh, did better than I thought. A 95 on the taijutsu, and a 100 on this. So your final score is 88. You pass. She stood and took a headband from a table in the corner. Congrats, you are now ninja. She tossed it, and the blonde caught it. He stared down at it until one of the monitors cleared his throat. That'll be all. We have to wrap this thing up. Naruto nodded furiously and thanked them and rushed out the door. Hell yeah! He whooped and jumped in joy, exiting the academy. He had just accomplished his first major goal and nobody was going to ruin it. Not even a snide comment from Sasuke or anyone. Hey Naruto! The blonde turned to find Iruka behind him. Well, did you make it? He asked. Naruto grinned and lifted the headband as an answer. Iruka grinned back. I thought you would have put it on by now. Do you need help? He teased good-naturedly. The blonde rolled his eyes and tied it to his forehead, the Konoha symbol glinting in the sunlight. Hey Iruka-sensei, do you think you could treat me at a Chiraku's? You know, in celebration? Asked Naruto. Iruka acted like he was considering it, though he had been going to even if the blonde had failed. Naruto was like a son or a little brother to him, even if he housed that thing. The energetic kid wasn't like that monster. Sure, agreed Iruka, after a nerve-wracking minute for Naruto. Alright. Race you there. Hey, you have a head start. Chapter 2. The Hokage rubbed his aching temples and sighed. This Genin squad selection was going to be the death of him. 18 had graduated, lower than usual but not uncommon. He had already grouped most of the students with their respective senseis, and he had only 6 graduates left, Naruto, Niji, Tenten, Lee, Tamitsu, and Yakumo. The remaining senseis were Might Guy and Anko. The Hokage sighed again. He was really getting too old for this. Naruto graduating had thrown a wrench into his original plan, to group Lee, Niji, and Tenten together and Tamitsu and Yakumo receiving an older genin. Not that the old man was angry, he saw the blonde as a surrogate grandson and was quite proud of him. It's just sometimes he was too much to handle. The Hokage leaned back in his chair and laced his fingers together in a thoughtful gesture. Lee would definitely benefit from having Guy as a sensei, but seeing that the two had a firm, if a bit creepy, relationship beforehand, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for him to be taught by another jonin. He could simply train with Guy after he did so with his squad. The Hyuga did exactly the same thing with their ninja. So this meant Lee could be put on a team with Anko. Yakumo was probably the easiest to place. She wouldn't benefit from Guy since he had a poor amount experience with genjutsu. Also Guy would probably work her to death. Even though the snake mistress was known for her sadism, the old man knew she could give people a break when absolutely needed. She also had plenty experience with genjutsu due to her being part of TI with Ibiki. Yakumo was definitely on Anko's team. Tamitsu was notorious for never using jutsu. He used only ken and taijutsu. The exams had been altered for him, the ninjutsu portion being replaced with kenjutsu. His father was a former samurai from the Land of Iron, and both followed the Bushido, the code of the samurai. The Hokage had no intimation why Tamitsu's father had moved to the Leaf, a shinobi village of all places, and why he had enlisted his son in the academy. He shrugged. Some people were just mysterious. The teen had phenomenal fighting skills and would likely work best with either Lee or Niji, prodigies in their respective fighting styles. The Hokage debated for a while whom the young samurai should be paired with, and finally settled upon Lee. They both could relate to not using chakra and would be excellent frontline fighters to protect the long-range genjutsu user Yakumo. Tamitsu would also gain experience from the sadistic Anko who would serve as his sensei. The Hokage exhaled and straightened in his chair. He scribbled down the team members and sensei, and quickly reviewed his idea. It would leave Niji, Naruto, and Tenten as a team with Guy as their mentor. Niji was a Hyuga. He would most likely receive outside training. Tenten specialized in weapons and would provide the long-range aspect of the team. She could also teach herself without any aid. Naruto would be the only member to really gain anything from being under Guy. His taijutsu was a bit sloppy and unpredictable, even if he had beaten a chunin. Teaching him a style would remarkably improve his skills. So then it is decided, thought the Hokage. He called out to his secretary, gather the Jonin senseis in the main hall for team announcements. Maiza. Hi, Hokage-sama. In about an hour, 10 Jonins were standing in the main hall of the Hokage Tower. They looked toward a table with the Hokage sitting in the middle of his 2 advisors, Koharu and Hamura. I am glad that you have all gathered here today. Kakashi still hasn't arrived, Hokage-sama, piped up Anko, scanning the room. The old man sighed as a vein pulsed in his forehead. Why can't he be on time for anything? Brooded the Hokage. Noted. I will inform him about team selections after he arrives. He picked a roster and began to read out the names. There was an accepting silence until he reached one team in particular. Team 6, Rock Lee, Yakumo Karama, and Tamitsu Gitsuga. The sensei is Anko Mitarashi. Anko, who had heard about the two non-chakra users of the class, argued, "What? I ain't got anything to teach those two little boys. Those two never use their own damn chakra, and hell, I can't ever not use it. The only one that I can really teach is that princess brat Yakumo." The Hokage listened as she stated her argument, and nodded understandably after she finished. "I can see why you are distraught. However, this is your team, and that is final. Teach them something that none have ever thought about. I know that you are an inventor. Take their techniques and change them to make them deadlier. You're smarter than you know, Anko. You'll make it work." The snake mistress grumbled but didn't pursue the topic. It was damn impossible to argue with him. Maybe, just maybe, this would work. But then, she had never passed a team before, so maybe these brats were the same as the others. "Any other objections?" asked the Hokage, scanning the crowd. There were none, and he resumed reading. When he reached the final team, there was another murmur in the crowd. Team 9, Niji Hyuga, Tenten Jinta, and Naruto Uzumaki. "What? That kid with the QB passed. Shut up." The first man immediately quieted, looking fearfully at the Hokage, who glared at him. "I will pretend that I did not hear that. Thank your friend beside you." The second man who told the other to shush threw a pointed look at the first, who looked down. "Let me finish. Team 9 sensei will be Might Guy." Guy, who was standing in the back, frowned, disappointed that he couldn't have his star pupil on his squad. He shrugged. Maybe he could teach another on the team he had been given. He could still train Lee after team practice. The old man once again looked out to the group, and asked, "Any objections?" There were none. "All right. You know the procedure. Tomorrow at the academy at 8. Kakashi, who had just arrived to hear the last sentence, asked, "What happens at the academy tomorrow at 8? The Hokage sighed, and pressed his fingers to his forehead. "Kakashi! My rival!" bellowed Guy, appearing by the white-haired Jonin and clapping him on the back. Due to the force, Kakashi fell on his face with his rear stuck straight into the air. Guy frowned. "Kakashi, what happened?" "You happened, Guy." "Now let me get up," mumbled Kakashi dangerously. As he brushed himself off, he repeated, "So what's happening at the academy tomorrow at 8? The old man resisted choking the man. "Consider the date." "What happened today?" "Well, I had a really good lunch, and then a good read," mused Kakashi, and then I smiled. "Hey, Hokage-sama, have you reached that part where Muka played with Dash? The genin exams were today. OOH. Tomorrow is when we get our students. Who's on my team?" The Hokage was snorting heavily, and he slowly drew up a deep breath. "I didn't assign you a team this year." "Oh. Well, I was just going to fail them anyway. Bye." He was off in a swirl of leaves. "I am going to kill that man someday," muttered the Hokage lowly. In a louder voice, he said the remaining Jonins, "You are dismissed." Naruto yawned. It was early morning, and the sun was slowly rising in the east. He smiled, and sat up in his bed. He looked over to his nightstand and the smile widened. There it was, his proof of being a ninja, flashing in the light. He stood and dressed quickly. He hadn't woken up as early as yesterday, and had about 30 minutes to arrive. It took about 20 to run there. After hastily grabbing a bite to eat, he rushed out the door. At the academy, Naruto was at a bit of a loss at where to go. He hadn't heard them say the room number, and hoped he wouldn't be late. He ran into Iruka while searching, and asked hurriedly, "Iruka-sensei, do you know where the new sensei are waiting for their senseis?" The man smiled and answered, "Room 252, the same as yesterday." "Thank you." The blonde rushed off, leaving behind an amused Iruka. I guess some things never change, he thought. Once at the designated classroom door, the blonde paused and took a breath to collect himself. Opening the door, he looked to see who had passed. Lee had passed and wore his headband around his waist. He was sitting in a corner, chatting with Tamitsu, whose headband was strapped to his right arm. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the fact the teen seemed to be talking freely. He didn't look the one to chat. Yakumo was beside the pair, drawing in a sketchbook of hers. Her headband was around her neck. "Hey, Naruto, right?" shouted a voice from across the room. Naruto glanced in the direction of it, and saw Tenten waving energetically at him. There was an empty chair beside her, and she gestured toward it. He smiled and walked over. "Yeah, it's Naruto," he said, sliding into the chair. She wore her headband around her forehead, as did the Niji guy who sat on the opposite side of her. She grinned at him. "Finally, I got a name right. And I usually suck with names." The blonde smirked. "Then what's my last name?" she faltered, her brow furrowing in concentration. After a minute, she exclaimed, "Oh, Uzumaki. I remember that because they were known for fuinjutsu." She paused and glanced at Naruto. "But you don't look like one. In all the pictures that I've seen of them they have red hair. Do you know any fuinjutsu by any chance?" Naruto snorted. "I don't even know what the word means, let alone know anything about it." "Ah." She pouted. "Oh well, you said you knew about my last name, Uzumaki?" "What do you mean they?" asked Naruto curiously. "Well, from what I've read about them, she began, racking her brain for information. The Uzumaki were from the land of the whirlpools and were awesome at Fuinjutsu. In the wars, their village was rarely attacked. Tenten frowned. There was something else. Something important, but I can't remember anything else. I wonder if I'm related, mused Naruto. It'd be cool to be related to people who weren't messed with. Can you try to remember anything else? The facts finally came back, and Tenten awkwardly answered, well, the Uzumaki were all killed in an attack about 25 years ago. There isn't anything left but rubble. Naruto deflated visibly. I wanted to be related to M. He shrugged. I probably wasn't. You said their hair was red? Mine's blonde. Their fate had been determined anyways. They could not have changed their destruction even if they had tried, stated Neji, scowling. Naruto turned to him. Well, aren't you a little ray of sunshine, he said sarcastically. Looks like fate didn't treat you too well. Neji narrowed his eyes hostilely. Watch what you say, little boy, or I might just humiliate you. Why you dash? At that moment, the chunin in charge of the class walked in to see Tenten restraining Naruto. He raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem? At the sight of the man, Naruto calmed and scowled at the Hyuga boy. They silently agreed to take their disagreement elsewhere. No? Good. I'm here to announce the teams. After that, you are no longer my responsibility. Alright, Team 5. The man drawled on and Naruto tuned him out until he heard familiar names. Team 6, Rock Lee, Yakumo Karama, and Tamitsu Gitsuga. Your sensei is Anko Mitarashi. Lee and Tamitsu shook hands, and Yakumo glanced at Lee and blushed lightly. Lee grinned at her and gave her a thumbs up. I wanted to be on Tamitsu's team, complained Naruto mentally. I want to be paired up with Tenten, but please not Neji. Please not Neji. Team 9, Neji Hyuga, Tenten Jinta, and Naruto Uzumaki. Your sensei is my guy, god damn it. Why does the world hate me, swore Naruto. Tenten smiled at him, and ruffled his hair. The blonde shook his head and playfully glared at her. She was okay. However, Neji scowled at him from the other side of Tenten, his white eyes boring straight into Naruto's. Too bad he isn't like Hinata. Me and him might actually work together then. After the chunin finished, he said, your senseis will be here dash. Crash. Boom. Thud. Alright Team 6, follow me. Shouted a woman with light purple hair and a revealing outfit of mesh and a short skirt. Naruto wanted to laugh at Team SIX's reactions, but he feared that Anko might turn on him and so hid a smile behind his hand. Yakumo looked positively terrified of the lady, and Lee had tilted his head to the side in confusion. Tamitsu had his head in his hands, and the blonde couldn't blame him. His sensei looked to be nuts or worse. Anko-san? Piped up the man. She turned toward him with an annoyed glare. He gulped. You're early. Her face fell, and Naruto had to resist the urge to laugh. What? Again? Goddammit, she trailed off, muttering curses as she walked out the door only to return seconds later with the rest of the jonins in tow. A man wearing a flak jacket over a green jumpsuit much like Lee stepped up. Team 9? Training ground 23. 5 minutes. And Lee, give me 200 push-ups, now. The boy saluted him and began to follow his orders, but Yakumo, with Tamitsu's help, dragged him from the room. After that, 200 laps around the village, shouted Guy after them. The power of youth will fuel you. He looked back at the classroom. Alright, Team 9. Let me repeat myself, training ground 23, 5 minutes. Guy vanished into a whirlwind. What? The training grounds are a half hour from here. Naruto glanced at his teammates, and saw that they had the same thought. Guess we better get moving and fast, said the blonde, and his team nodded in agreement. 4 minutes later, the three arrive at the training grounds, panting. Tenten fell forward on her stomach and groaned. God, I've never run that fast in my life. Neji was bent over with his hands on his knees. He said nothing, however, choosing to keep his stoic demeanor. Naruto was in the same position as Neji, but he slowly straightened as his energy came back. This training area looked like all of the others, a clearing with a forest surrounding it, but through the trees, Naruto could see a lake. In the center of the clearing there was a rock about 5 feet in diameter on which their sensei was currently standing. He jumped down and stood in front of his squad. He gave them a thumbs up to which they deadpanned. Alright. Let's start with introductions. I'm Might Guy, the mighty green beast of the leaf and a nice guy. I like training, taijutsu, and determination. What I don't like are arrogant people and people who don't try, he said enthusiastically. Naruto frowned. Okay, this guy is a little off his rocker, not to mention a little too energetic. He makes me look lazy. I hope I can keep with him. His sensei turned towards the blonde. You, young man. You're up next, said person sighed and mumbled in a monotone. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen and training. I don't like arrogant people and the time it takes to make the ramen. It always seems to drag on. His obsession with ramen was as always strong. Tenten was next. She was still lying on the ground, and she groaned as she rose. God, well, I'm Tenten Jinta, though I don't like my last name. I like any kind of weapon and Chinese food, and dislike pickled plums. She scrunched her nose at the words. Black can't stand to think about them. Niji stepped up and deadpanned, "My name is Niji Hyuga. I enjoy training with my fighting style and dislike fools who have no idea what they're talking about." He eyed Naruto pointedly, and the blonde glared back. Guy nodded and gave the three of them a toothy grin. "Alright. Time for the actual genin exam." "What? We just passed one," argued Tenten. Naruto sighed. "Another damn test? Great. Nope. That beginning test was to see if you were strong enough. Now I test you to see if you are worthy." Niji inhaled and exhaled slowly through his nose, trying to contain his temper. He looked at the Jonin. "Then tell us, Guy-sensei, what is our final test?" Guy lowered himself into a fighting stance. His back was straight, legs together, and body turned sideways toward them. His left hand was behind his back while his right hand was held out in front of him, fingers pointing up. "Your test is to land a single blow on my person. Begin." Naruto made the clone hand sign, and 10 clones popped into existence. He nodded at the clones. "Take him in pairs." Tenten pulled a scroll from her pants pocket and unfurled it. Several kunai shot out of it in a cloud of smoke, all of which completely missed Guy as he leaped into the air. As he landed, he was rushed by Niji, who had a smirk on his face and thought the man had no knowledge of gentle fist. However, he was proved wrong when Guy started to weave in and out of his strikes. Naruto's clones had now reached the fighting pair, and 2 separated from the group and tried to land a blow on the Jonin. Guy, thinking they were intangible, ignored the clones, but then one managed to kick him in the ankle. Not painful or good enough to pass, but it let him know they were real, and he used the fact to his advantage. He gripped one of the clones by the neck and threw it into the Hyuga boy. The two slid back about 10 feet and fell over each other. Guy finished the other clone by dodging a sloppy left hook and punching it in the gut. Tenten launched Saban at him, and Guy simply sidestepped to avoid them. He charged the rest of Naruto's clones, which stood off slightly, waiting. He fought each one in an one-on-one battle, and the clones were no match for the taijutsu master. The original stood back, the memories of each clone flooding back to him as they dispelled. He'd discovered this little nifty ability of the shadow clone jutsu about a month ago. In an epiphany, he had realized that if 10 clones fought one person, it would be like fighting that person 10 times. Even he valued something like that. More memories came in, and all told the same story. He was getting his butt kicked. How the hell were they going to hit this guy? Niji had charged the Jonin again, only to be kicked back into a tree. Looks like Guy-sensei is even beating this guy. Serves him right. The flood of memories came in again, and Naruto looked at the battle between Guy and his clones and saw there were only about 3 left. He quickly created more. Amazing Guy. Guy could only manage 2 or 3 without exhaustion setting in. Tenten was sending barrage after barrage of Saman erupting from scrolls, but all were missing their mark. She was irritated. She never missed. Never. She had made her goal to always hit her target, but admittedly, she had never tried to hit a moving target. Another barrage missed, and her temple pulsed. Amid the crowd of Naruto clones, Niji pushed his way through, wanting to try and land a strike on Guy yet again. He broke free of the crowd who protested and rushed toward Guy. He snaked his way past the 2 clones already entangled with the man and struck with an open palm laden with chakra. Guy knocked it aside and kicked him in the gut. Niji winced, and Guy shoved him into the crowd who pushed him back into the fight. Naruto bit his lip. "Man, this isn't going the way I want. Damn it, how do we hit him?" he shouted to the clones. "Back away from him. Only try to hit him when you see a chance." The clones needed no more persuasion, their numbers already thin, but then Naruto reinforced them with more. Niji and Tenten were in the middle of the circle the clones made, fighting in their own way. Every once in a while, a clone would dart in, thinking it had seen an opening only to be punched or kicked into smoke. "I've got to think of something," thought Naruto, racking his brain. Something surprising. Something off the wall. Something that has Naruto Uzumaki written all over it. Then, an idea popped into his head, and he grinned. "Oh yeah, that just stinks of me." Guy was pleased with this group so far, but they really hadn't grasped at the concept of this test. He had taken the concept from his rival Kakashi, and it was a good concept. Guy didn't quite administer the test the same way, but he wanted to test taijutsu as well as the concept. He dodged another gentle fist strike and shoved Niji into the clones who pushed him back, and Tenten's Saban whizzed by his face. Guy expected another clone to come in at that moment, but instead Naruto yelled, "Yoo-hoo! Sensei, looky here!" Disobeying an essential rule, Guy looked out of curiosity to see 2 clones holding onto another, and with a grin, they slingshot him at Guy. "Woohoo! Look out, Sensei!" Guy blinked and stepped lightly to the side, watching as Naruto flew by and crashed headfirst into a tree. He slid down with a groan, and Guy couldn't help but laugh. In that moment, he let down his guard, and Tenten and Niji unwittingly worked the way Naruto wanted them to. Tenten threw 2 bolas, and they wrapped securely around Guy's legs and arms. Before he fell, however, Niji managed to land a single open palm strike on his chest. Guy, completely immobilized, skidded backward and rolled to a stop. He caught his breath, which Niji had knocked out of him, and Guy regarded them in amazement. Tenten and Niji exchanged looks, and then Guy started to laugh. Naruto joined him, sitting where he'd come to stop after his slingshot. Did you plan that at all? Asked Guy between laughs. And no, replied Tenten, and Niji shook his head. I sorta did, said Naruto, wiping away tears from laughter. I meant to hit you, but I kinda missed. Guy laughed more. It was completely obvious what you were doing. Even an academy student could have seen it. Why'd you get my attention anyway? Naruto shrugged. I dunno. It seemed right to try to punch you in the face. At least it distracted you. Indeed it did. Guy struggled a bit in the tangle of Bolus, and he looked proudly at Tenten. Bolus. I never expected them. Could you cut me loose now? Tenten nodded, smile on her face, and cut him loose with a kunai. Guy rubbed his wrists as he stood, the tips of his fingers purple. Well, I have good news. You pass. You're part of the 33% that passed this test. 33%? Demanded Tenten. You didn't tell us that. Well, I didn't want to get your hopes down. And if you had failed, you would have been sent back to the academy. What? Shouted Tenten and Naruto both this time. Training is at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Bye. Wait a minute dash, began Naruto before his sensei disappeared. 6 in the morning? Repeated Tenten disbelievingly. Really? Yeah, verified Naruto. He sighed. Oh well. Maybe he'll show us something interesting, she huffed. Maybe. But it better be pretty damn interesting to wake me up at 5:30 in the morning. Naruto shrugged. None of us like it, even if one doesn't want to admit it. He glanced at Niji, who rolled his eyes but said nothing. Anyway, you guys have any plans for the rest of the day? Tenten tilted her head to the side. Why? Well, I train usually after the academy, and although I could train now, I really don't want to, but you're due something fun. I'd like to come. Well, I was going to train my accuracy with moving targets. Guy-sensei really messed me up and I want to get better. Naruto nodded, and a way he could help occurred to him. My clones will be good for that. They're quick enough to be hard for you, she grinned. You think so? He grinned back. I know so. Niji, who had been silent the entire time, said to Tenten, you really think training will improve your chances of hitting Guy-sensei with a saban? He's a jonin, we are genin. It's simply not possible at our skill level. Way to go to boost her confidence, Mr. Ray of Sunshine. Tenten laughed at Naruto's remark, and Niji narrowed his eyes. He snorted and walked off. Such a charmer, don't know what you see in him, Tenten, she blushed. Hey! I only said he was handsome, right? The stoic and sulky attitude has nothing with it. At least you're a strong kunoichi as female shinobi should be, she nodded. I believe that kunoichi can be as strong as any male ninja, Naruto nodded. Expect with muscles. Women can't beat men in arm or leg power. In some bar, a blonde-haired, big-breasted woman felt as if she had been insulted and needed to prove something by punching something very, very hard, and that opportunity came when one drunken patron tried to grope her. Shanaru, back in the leaf, Naruto shivered. Why do I feel that I was terribly, terribly wrong? Tenten was shaking her head at his statement. Apparently you've never heard of Lady Tsunade's monster strength, she said, and Naruto felt that wrong feeling suddenly had a place. She would send full-grown ninja flying with a poke from her finger. I want to be like her, strong and independent. Great. Most other girls worry about makeup or their hair or their clothes. He made a gagging gesture. Only one other girl is like you. Who's the other? Naruto blushed and stuttered. Anyway, shall we move on to training? Tenten noticed the change in the subject. What? Is she your crush? Shut up. Come on, tell me. No, you know my crush, so now tell me yours. Damn it, he took a deep breath, and muttered, Hinata Hyuga. Tenten was silent for a second, and then she threw her head back and laughed. What's so funny? Demanded the blonde. It's just that we're both suckers for Hyugas. Naruto slowly counted to 10 before saying, training, shall we? Tenten nodded and wiped her eyes. Naruto created 10 clones and told them to follow the kunoichi's orders. He then created a clone for himself, and they engaged in a light spar. Naruto never hit hard enough to dispel it, but they went at a quick pace to keep him on guard. Got one! Shouted Tenten. I know. The blonde had felt the memories coming in. What? How? When one of my clones is destroyed, I get its memories. It's really useful in looking for stuff and also in a fight. For each clone beat by the other guy, it's another I've basically fought him. I can fight him 100 times before actually fighting him. But my clones need a lot of chakra. A lot. You can create 20 clones in a snap. How's that large? Naruto grinned, embarrassed. I got a lot of chakra. I think I have as much as old man Hokage, and I'm just a kid. Sheesh, said Tenten, impressed. How many can you create at once without feeling it? About 500. Tenten's jaw hit the ground. Yeah, I know. After she had recovered, Tenten said, well, I guess I don't need to worry about you. A chakra tank, the blonde grinned and dispelled the sparring clone. He started to do push-ups and sit-ups, 20 of each, and then he ran 10 laps around the clearing. Then he created a clone to spar with again. Every few minutes, Tenten needed him to make 10 more clones, and the exercise eventually took its toll. It was sunset when Naruto and Tenten agreed to stop. Naruto was gasping for air because of the number of clones he'd created and the sparring. Tenten was grinning ear to ear at her drastic improvement in accuracy. Hell yeah! Out of 10 moving targets, I can hit 9. Just a little more for perfection. Naruto nodded, and she ruffled his hair again. Thanks for the help. She left. Naruto straightened his hair and soon followed her, grinning. This was going to be a great team even with Niji. He could sense it. At the Hokage Tower, the Jonins charged with the care of genin squads were assembled in the main hall with the Hokage and his advisors sitting at a table in front of them. The Hokage stood and said, "Will the Jonin state whether or not your team has passed?" Team 5 failed. Team 6 passed, reported an irritated but somehow pleased-looking Anko. Team 7 failed. Team 8 failed. Team 9 passed, said Guy. All of them show dash. Yes, Guy. We know. Go on, Hisu, interrupted the Hokage. Team 10 failed, Hokage-sama. The old man nodded. 6 out of 18 had passed. 33%. He smiled slightly at that. That will be all. You are dismissed. Chapter 3. Naruto woke up about 5:30 in the morning to the scream of his alarm clock. He groaned and slammed the snooze button. He lay there for a few seconds, trying to mentally chase away the last vestiges of sleep, and slowly got out of bed. 6 in the morning? Why the hell did Sensei have to do this? We're gonna be dead tired when we get there. The sun had begun to rise when Naruto headed out to the training ground at about 15 minutes until 6. He double-timed it to the location, taking several shortcuts through alleys and back streets. He arrived about a minute left with both of his teammates waiting there for him. Niji was leaning against a tree with his eyes closed, but he opened them when Naruto neared. Tenten was sitting on the ground with her back against the tree beside Niji, sleeping and even snoring lightly. Naruto considered scaring her, but crossed that out due to her almost unerring accuracy. She might hit something rather important. The blonde walked over to the space between Niji and Tenten and sat, knowing it wouldn't be long until Guy would arrive. And he wasn't wrong. The man arrived at 6 on the dot, flashing his signature grin at them. Hello, comrades. Today we shall use our power of youth and train until our heart gives up. Tenten snorted and looked up blearily at her sensei's words, and Naruto looked horrified. I hope you don't actually mean that? He asked. Of course not. But we will train until our legs give out, Niji snorted softly. Why does our sensei have to be an idiot? Tenten stood and yawned. When do we start? I hope not now. It's too early. Of course we're going to start now, Tenten. It's the perfect time. Now, 50 laps around the village. Go! The trio didn't budge, all choosing to look at Guy as if he had grown a second head. FF50. Demanded Tenten, are you trying to kill us? Naruto's mouth was hanging open and Niji scowled. That's a bit much, Guy-sensei. Give us like 2 or 3 or something. Not 50. We're gonna die, argued the blonde. Guy seemed to consider his words, but then grinned at them. But you gotta run before you can walk. 50 laps, go. They still didn't move a muscle. Guy kept his grin as he pulled out 3 jumpsuits and waggled his gigantic eyebrows. If you don't, you will wear this for the rest of the day. And in an instant, the 3 were gone. Naruto swore as he tripped over a rock, and ahead of him, Tenten laughed. Niji's back was to him, but Naruto could feel disapproving waves rolling off of him. Damn it, I want to go faster, but then I'll tire out. If I tire out, then Guy-sensei will probably do something I'm scared of. He weighed his options, either preserve his pride or energy. He chose the latter, optimistically thinking that Niji and Tenten would tire before he did, and right he was. On about the 5th lap, he started to close in on Tenten, who by now was panting. On the next he passed her. Later on the 10th, he closed in on and overtook Niji. The blonde resisted the urge to throw insults over his shoulder at them as he did so. Eventually, about 3 hours later, Naruto finished with Niji behind about a quarter of a lap and Tenten a full lap. He arrived at the clearing as he finished. Guy was waiting there, and the man grinned at the boy who was gasping for breath. Walk it off. Naruto nodded and paced as he waited for his teammates. As he did so, he began to think about the other teams, the foremost in his mind being Team 6. He wondered if they passed the true genin exam. They probably did. They look like they can handle themselves. A rustle announced Niji's arrival, and the panting Hyuga received the same advice from Guy that Naruto had been given. Niji simply chose to lean against the tree, his breathing slowing as he recovered. Tenten stumbled into the clearing about 20 minutes later and fell on her stomach to the ground. Guy moved to help her, but she growled at him. That was the most exhausting workout I've ever gotten, she breathed, rolling over. And there's more, said Guy enthusiastically, earning a terrified look from Tenten, a snort from Niji, and a sigh from Naruto. More. Are you nuts or something? Shouted Tenten. Nope. 100 push-up, sit-ups, and pull-ups. Go. Naruto reluctantly started the workout, and he was done about 5 minutes before his teammates. He fell from the tree from which he was doing pull-ups and collapsed into a heap. He groaned and pushed himself up. Never again. He fell back over and fell asleep. Niji finished soon after and smirked at the sleeping blonde. Tenten finished just after Niji and swore colorfully about her sore muscles. Her loud swears woke Naruto, and he cracked open an eye. What? Teased Naruto groggily, complaining like one of those fangirls, are you? Tenten glared at him. If I had enough energy, I'd clobber you for that, but today I'll let it slide. Doubt you could touch me anyway, taunted Naruto, earning him a senbon in the arm. Ow. Damn it, that stings. He stood and threw it back and missed. She poked her tongue out at him, and Naruto shook a fist threateningly at her. Now, soothed Guy, we'll move on to the more specific training now. More of training? Asked Tenten sarcastically. Niji, however, asked, what do you mean, specific? Instead of answering, Guy created 2 clones, solid ones by the shadow they created. One stood near Neige and other near Tenten. Each of you will be trained by my clones. Naruto, you will be with me. Naruto, so sensei, what are you gonna do? Asked Naruto as his teammates walked off with their assigned clone. First, I want to analyze your fighting style thoroughly. I'll move on from there. Guy shifted into his combat stance and beckoned Naruto forward. Naruto nodded and crouched down with his forearms crossed in front of his face, his own invented and almost instinctual stance. Guy frowned slightly. That was an unusual stance. It was almost feral. Naruto exploded from the spot, charging the Jonin. Guy shifted his weight to his back leg in anticipation of a frontal attack as the blonde neared. He was right mostly. Naruto jabbed at Guy's gut while simultaneously kicking from the side at the same place. Guy blocked the punch and sensed the kick, and crouched to dodge it. He swept Naruto's legs out from under him, and the blonde caught himself easily by landing on his hands and flipping backwards. He ran and tried to land a spinning kick on Guy, who caught his leg and threw him to the side. The Jonin grinned. For a kid with no official training, his taijutsu was crafty. Naruto crashed into a tree, and he slowly stood. He frowned. The blonde was sorely tempted to use shadow clones, but knew inwardly that would be cheating even if Guy could take on an entire army. He rushed the Jonin again and, as he neared, dropped into a sliding kick intended to trip up the Jonin. It didn't work, of course. Guy simply stepped to the side to avoid it. As he slid by, however, Naruto pushed upward with his arms and attempted a kick much like the one he had landed on the chunin in the exams. Unfortunately, Guy was Jonin and a taijutsu specialist, and so he avoided the blow by tilting his head back slightly. Naruto flipped away again and paused. This was a useless endeavor. Maybe Guy would allow weapons. Naruto had been dying to use an aspect of the substitution jutsu like it hadn't ever been used, and this fight might just allow him to do so. He took out 2 shuriken, and seeing no objection from Guy, he threw one. The Jonin stepped away from its path, and the shuriken embedded itself into a tree. Naruto threw the other, and then Guy lost track of things. The man prepared to move out of the shuriken's way again, but then the shuriken wasn't there anymore, Naruto taking his place. The blonde roared as he jumped and kicked out, but Guy reacted quickly enough to dodge it. Then Naruto vanished for the second time, and Guy glanced around before a kick landed squarely on his back. Guy fell, but he rolled to safety as Naruto followed with a punch where he'd been. Guy rose, and Naruto moved to rush Guy again, but he held up his hand. That's enough. I've seen what you can do, and I'm impressed. Your Tai could easily give an experienced chunin trouble. There is no exact style to it, is there? He inquired. Naruto shook his head. No. I just copy what I see and goes with what feels right. I just kinda make up moves as I go. I have a feeling that someone with real training could beat me in a no-jutsu spar. He scrunched his nose in dislike. Guy grinned. I take it you don't like to reserve to pure Tai? No. You saw the shuriken. Guy nodded and tapped his chin thoughtfully. What jutsu do you know? No much. Shadow clone, transformation, and substitution, that's about it. I was going to ask you, how did you get a hold of an A-rank kinjutsu? The forbidden scroll is always locked up in the Hokage Tower. Naruto went rigid. Damn. Even though he had known that people would eventually notice, he still was reluctant to explain. Well, you see, the blonde told the story of failing, seeing Kakashi and the odd clone, talking to Iruka, and then basically stealing restricted information. After he had finished, Naruto looked fearfully at Guy. Please don't turn me in. I was just trying to pass, he pleaded. Inwardly, Guy was impressed. This kid was good at infiltration. He smiled softly. No, I'm not going to have you arrested, but I might inform the ANBU about the hidden copy. A copy of the scroll of sealing is outrageously illegal, but the library is usually secured very well. But I got in without doing anything. Well, the man you transformed into is very well known and trusted. It's not a surprise, really, but I want the copy of the scroll of sealing protected and protected very well. What else is in there? You'll find out when you become a Jonin. What else do you know the shadow clone jutsu? Naruto grinned and created a clone. He pointed to it. Whisper a number into his ear. Guy frowned, but he muttered into the clone's ear, the original plugging his ears and closing his eyes. As soon as Guy had said his number, the clone dispelled, and Naruto shouted, 1576. He opened his eyes and lowered his hands. Is that right? Guy raised his brow. Yes, it was. You know about the memory transferability. How? Naruto grinned sheepishly. Well, I was stuck in class one day, and I remembered that I'd left something at home. I went to the bathroom and created a clone to go get the thing. A pencil, I think. On the way, though, it took a wrong turn and hit a metal pole with its head. Naruto rubbed his forehead ruefully. In class, I felt that hit, and I wondered why. After playing around with the clones, I found out that each one is like me and sends me their memories. He used the example he always used to explain why he liked the ability so much. If 10 clones fought you and I hung back, it'd still be the same as fighting you 10 times. Am I right? Yes, you're right, confirmed Guy, impressed with Naruto. It's amazing that you noticed. Naruto grinned, flushing from the praise. The Shadow Clone Jutsu was designed to be a reconnaissance jutsu, something to send ahead and scout. But the way you phrase it, it could be used for combat in ways besides overpowering the enemy with sheer number. Naruto's grin grew. That's fun too. I can create a lot of these clones, and I can only create 2 or 3. Your chakra reserves are huge compared to mine. Naruto flushed deeper red, and Guy moved on. Moving on to your shuriken, I guess that you switch places with them to surprise your opponents? Naruto nodded. Most people use substitution jutsu to get out of hairy situations, but I was thinking of how cool it'd be to be anywhere almost instantly with it. When I'm fighting, I could substitute behind the person and hit them from behind. He smacked his open palm. They'd never know what hit him. Guy laughed. You're crafty, I'll give you that. His face became thoughtful. Now, about straightening up your fighting style, I could teach you my own style, Iron Fist, but you'd need dedication and lots of willpower. Naruto puffed out his chest. You think I ain't got that? Do you have enough to put 200 pounds of weights on? His entire body fell, and he ogled Guy. Huh, to be proficient with Iron Fist, it requires you to be strong and quick. The weights will help with that. You're gonna kill me. Guy waved his protests away. No, I'm not. He began to draw something from his jacket. Now, here are the weights. 10-10. 10-10, and the clone walked off into a group of trees about 100 feet away from the original, and the clone began. Okay, I take it you're weapons specialist? Yup. Alright, from what I saw from the fight, you are inaccurate with moving targets. Using blunted weapons because I am a clone, I want you to try to hit me. 10-10 snorted. That so worked out yesterday. Even though she had trained with Naruto's clones the day before, Guy was much quicker and agile. She would be lucky to even graze him. She quickly threw 3 saban in his direction, who sidestepped them. The clone leaped in the air and onto the trunk of a tree. He then started to jump to each tree trunk, never staying on it longer than a second. 10-10 continued to launch saban at him, but they would hit the trunk the clone had landed previously. I need to track him. Predict and then lead a saban to the spot he'll land next. She calmed her breathing and followed the blurring clone with her eyes. Slowly, the pattern began to show, and the clone seemed to slow as she reached for a saban. She led the clone, predicted his next move, and threw the saban. With a knock, it hit a spot about an inch away from the clone. Damn! So close. She calmed again and analyzed the pattern again. A little bit faster than what I thought. A few minor adjustments. She repeated the process of leading, predicting, and throwing the saban. This time, it hit the clone in the shoulder, causing he to lose balance and fall from the tree. He fell perfectly to the ground and grinned at 10-10. Good shot. But you have to keep at it. We're going to go at this until the aiming process is instinctual. That takes weeks. She argued. I have a feeling that it may only take a few days. With that, the clone was bouncing off tree trunks again, with 10-10 hitting it every 2 attempts. After about an hour and a half, the clone jumped back to the ground. Well done. Your accuracy has improved. 10-10 grinned at the clone. During the last 30 minutes, she had been hitting the clone about 9 out of 10 times. She even surprised herself by her rapid improvement. Now let's move on to Dash. Sensei? There was something she wanted to know, a weapon that she had always wanted to learn to use but no one could ever teach her. Now, under the tutelage of a combat master, she might have a chance, but she wasn't entirely sure he knew anything about the weapon. He was the right person to ask, though. Yes, 10-10? Do you know anything about the bow staff? Why do you ask? Well, I want to be a weapons master, and to be that I have to know about all weapons and how to fight with them. I thought that the ones that are close to taijutsu might be easier to start with. She fiddled with her feet. Well, do you know anything? The clone nodded. The original knows how to fight using a bow staff, and therefore so do I. I was planning on improving on your taijutsu, but using weapons is just fine, though you might want to find someone else for the more complicated weapons. I know only how to use tanfas and the bow staff. Alright. She pulled out a scroll and unsealed a staff about 5.5 feet long, which she grabbed and held it touching the ground at a perpendicular angle. The clone nodded to himself. That's the at ease stance, meaning you don't wish to attack. What else do you know? I don't know anything else. It just comes naturally, she replied, shifting her grip on the staff. She now held it in both hands parallel to the ground. That's the combat stance, said the clone, tapping his chin. He seemed to ponder something before taking off its leg warmers. He pulled out black cylinders which the clone linked together to make a staff about 6.5 feet long. Then he adopted the same stance 10-10 was in. I'm interested if you can defend yourself using the bow staff without any training. It grinned. In short, bring it on. She grinned back and swung with the staff, extending her reach by letting with one hand and reaching her arm as far as she could. The clone blocked it, and attempted to disarm Tenten by using her weakened grip to his advantage, but she had already made the full swing and brought the staff around to grab in both hands. The clone made a movement for an overhead strike, and Tenten prepared to block it only to be lightly tapped in the side by him. If this had been real, you would have been thrown sideways and several of your organs would have been ruptured, said the clone, shifting back into the combat stance as did Tenten. She jabbed with the right side of her staff, which he blocked, and tried a sweeping motion at the clone only for him to jump over her staff and tap his staff on her head. Dead, she growled in the back of her throat and then jumped to imitate the clone's move. The strike was blocked easily, but she followed up with 2 alternating jabs, the last of which grazed the clone's side. Hey now, if you destroy me, the original will be hard-pressed to make another clone. Sorry, but not really. She swung one-handed again, and this time the clone disarmed her with a well-placed smack on the staff. Her staff clattered to the ground, and the clone placed his foot on it. That move you used is powerful, but very risky. As you see, your grip is weakened, opening yourself up to disarming. Though if you do manage to hit, the results can be serious for the opponent, pointed out the clone, kicking Tenten's staff back to her. I admit your skill with the staff is advanced for someone with no experience with the staff. You could take down a few bandits if needed, but we're still going to train. Tenten picked up the staff and held at ease. So what are we going to do first? Well, since you have the stances down, I might show a few complicated moves like Niji. The two walked into another nearby clearing, and the clone turned to face Niji. Alright, now we're going to start by Dash. Sensei, I want to ask a question, cut in Niji. The clone frowned. Yes? I am a Hyuga. How exactly can you give me specific training when you cannot perform gentle fist techniques yourself? It sighed. The original had been expecting this. I am a taijutsu expert. Even though I don't have the Byakugan dash, this earned him a surprised look from Niji. Yes, I know about the Hyuga Kekkei Genkai, and even though I don't have it, I can still learn what the stances are and how the style is supposed to be used. I simply cannot utilize it to its full purpose. Now, for actual in-depth training, I would consult an actual Hyuga, but you have to do that on your own time. I will simply keep your skills sharp during our personal training. The clone shifted into a fighting stance. Now I want to measure your skill at gentle fist. From yesterday, I can see that you are proficient, but now is the time to make a more detailed analysis. Niji nodded and adopted his stance, weight focused on the right foot which was in front of the left, right arm full extended in front of him with fingers and palms skyward, left arm bent with the hand tucked near the waist parallel with the ground, and both legs bent slightly. And one more thing, piped up the clone, don't use chakra in your strikes, and try not to hit me that hard. I'll dispel if you do. The Hyuga nodded and closed his eyes. After a second, they whipped open with veins popping out around them and a faint pupil developing in the center of each eye. The Byakugan. Niji darted towards the clone and performed a series of quick jabs with paired index and middle fingers, all of which were dodged. He tried to follow up with a quick kick and a palm strike to the chest, but the clone simply seemed to dance out of the way. Niji narrowed his eyes but continued to jab at the clone, making no progress whatsoever. This is pointless, thought Niji after 5 full minutes of hitting nothing but air. The clone was simply too quick. Knowing to at least land a single blow, Niji focused chakra to his right foot to ready himself. When the clone backed away, the Hyuga released the stored chakra, causing him to bolt forward and take it by surprise. He focused his Byakugan on the clone and saw its chakra network. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. Shouted Niji, striking the clone. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 palms. The clone slid back slightly but did not dispel as Niji had not injected chakra into its system or had hit hard enough. It smirked at the Hyuga and settled back into its stance. Niji kept his face blank as he backed away, moving back into gentle fist. The two slowly circled each other, waiting for other to attack. The clone broke the circle by charging Niji, fists at the ready. Niji shifted his weight to his left foot to intercept the strikes. The clone threw several jabs and hooks at the Hyuga, but each were deflected by Niji's palm. After a rather powerful left hook which rattled Niji slightly, it seemed to lose its balance. He smirked as he lightly hit the clone's chest. The clone flipped backward and clutched the spot that had been hit. All right. Fight over, said the clone. Niji relaxed and stood straight. Well? He asked. I can see why they call you a prodigy. Able to master the stepping stone for 64 palms at such an age, impressive. Give it 10 years, and you might equal Hayashi-sama. Niji's eyes narrowed at the mention of the Hyuga patriarch, but he said nothing. It is by luck that I learned that. The main family doesn't share its secrets with us lowly side members, he thought venomously. If I'm caught. Well, said the clone, disrupting Niji's thoughts, your form is near flawless, but I saw a few things out of place. Mind you, I might not be able to fix them, but I'll do my best. Okay, assume the stance again. The entire team regrouped after about 3 hours. Naruto was panting. He had mastered the stance for Iron Fist, but the style of fighting was exhausting to keep up even for a stamina monster like him. Both Niji and Tenten were breathing lightly. Guy's clone had pointed out errors in the Hyuga's form which the prodigy had easily corrected. Tenten had picked up the staff techniques naturally, but the clone still bested her, as she had several bruises to show for it. Alright, team. began Guy after dispelling the clones. Same time, same place tomorrow. Niji and Tenten nodded and walked off, leaving Naruto behind. The blonde opened his mouth to ask something but was cut off by Guy-sensei. Hell. Lee landed in front of the blonde with his back to him and saluted the jonin. He must have passed the second test to be in such a dapper mood. Reporting, sir, how did your training go? Enko-sensei had us fight against her summon as a team, and then she made clones which tutored us individually. The boy pulled from his waist holster a pair of spiked knuckles. Enko-sensei said that this would not stop my development in taijutsu, but instead augment it. Guy nodded, liking the snake mistress's approach. Naruto frowned. She uses clones to train her students too? I guess it lets the sensei be in more than one place, but the students have to be careful. That's good, Lee, said Guy, breaking Naruto's concentration. Now let's dash. Guy-sensei? Interrupted Naruto. Both turned to look at the blonde. I was going to ask if you could give me extra training, but if you're doing something dash. Nonsense. I can train you and Lee at the same time, but, he pulled out a green jumpsuit, you have to wear this. He waved it merrily. Come on, sensei. What's with the jumpsuit? It's ridiculous. It is not ridiculous, argued Lee. It is the representation of our power and spirit. Right. A tight green jumpsuit. The blonde rolled his eyes. Look, sensei, I want to train with you, but if you threaten me with that thing I'll have to forget the whole thing. Guy sighed and put the suit away. All right. At least I have 2 pupils instead of 1. I can finally show you the power of youth, and you won't threaten to brainwash me, said Naruto flatly, and Guy's shoulders slumped. It was sunset when the training was finished, and Naruto lay on the ground, huffing. God. Those 2 don't play games. He rubbed several bruises and scrapes. Both can fight forever it seems like, and no matter how hard they hit each other, not one bone breaks. Hell, I was kicked by Lee and nearly broke a couple of ribs. He sat up painfully, and Lee, who stood off to his right, offered him a hand. Thanks, Lee, thanked Naruto as he stood. Lee gave him a puzzled look. How do you know my name? They hadn't introduced themselves at the first of the training. Naruto blinked but replied without hesitation. Guy-sensei said your name just after you told him about your training and before we started training. He shrugged non-committally. I pick up on those kinds of things. Oh. Well, what is your name? Naruto Uzumaki. Pleasure to meet you, Naruto-san. Likewise. A thought occurred to the blonde. Hey Lee. Do you know any ninjutsu? I do not. I am not capable of performing the simplest of jutsu. What? How'd you pass the exams? They altered it for me. I was instead given a more difficult taijutsu portion in place of ninjutsu. That's different. It's really gonna be hard for him to get to higher ninja ranks. All shinobi have to know at least one jutsu. It's always been like that, but maybe he can change that, thought Naruto. He rolled his sore neck and waved goodbye as he walked back toward the village. Good God, I'm going to be sore tomorrow. Plus I've got these weights on. Damn. He turned a corner and smelled ramen, the aroma coming from Ichiraku. The small stand had always been his favorite and still was. He parted the flaps and sat down wearily, not even noticing his neighbor. Hey Naruto. How'd your first real day of training go? Asked Irika, causing Naruto to jump. The blonde glared at the chunin. There were 2 tests. I never heard of the second. With a smile, he replied, a shinobi must expect the unexpected. I hate sayings sometimes, remarked Naruto, setting his head on the table. Came to where he sat. Hey Naruto-kun. The usual? Yeah. Thanks Sayame. Ayam looked at Irika, who ordered a miso ramen. After a minute, Naruto said, and to answer your question, it was exhausting. Guy-sensei is teaching me Iron Fist, and I probably just trained about 12 hours with only 1 break. Tomorrow is going to be the same, I guess. He sighed and put his arms underneath his head. Ayam came to their spot with the food and put it down in front of them. She looked worriedly at the blonde. Naruto-kun? You alright? He muttered something unintelligible, and Irika nudged him. Hey, the food's here. Naruto sat bolt straight and blinked dizzily before laying his eyes on the ramen in front of him. Taking a pair of chopsticks, he dove into the bowl. Irika chuckled. He'll be okay. Just a bit tired, I think. Ayam giggled and went off to take the orders of other customers. Irika started to eat his own ramen bowl, but was rudely interrupted by, Hey. Can you make about 10 more bowls? Irika raised an eyebrow at the blonde who grinned at him. I'm feeling better with food in me, obviously. Soon 3 bowls were set in front of Naruto, who swiftly devoured all of them. Irika shook his head. I don't know how you grow so much yet eat only ramen. Beats me, Naruto managed through a mouthful of ramen. I really like being tall though. I'm no longer a midget. You're still short to me, teased Irika. That's gonna change in a few years. They laughed, and then ate in silence until Irika finished his 1 bowl and Naruto his 10. The blonde leaned back and sighed comfortably as he finished. That was good, Irika nodded. So, he began, guys teaching you Iron Fist, Yeah. I don't really have a style of fighting to go to, and Guy-sensei wants to change that. He nearly made me wear that godforsaken jumpsuit. He shivered. I talked him out of it. That would have been quite a sight, commented the chunin, amused. If you had laughed, Naruto shook his fist at him, and Iruka chuckled. Do you know what he's doing with your teammates? No. He made shadow clones and taught the others separately. Iruka frowned. That's strange. My Jonin sensei taught my squad all together. We all learned the same thing. Really? The other team that passed is using shadow clones as well. Is it because we've all got our own thing to learn? Iruka frowned as he considered it. That's a possibility, he agreed. I'd look into it if I had time. Who are your teammates? He asked curiously. Niji Hyuga and Tenten Jinta. Ah. The prodigy and weapons girl. I've heard about them. The prodigy? That explains everything. Naruto trailed off, mumbling. Iruka frowned but decided not to ask. A few minutes later the blonde asked, What did you learn as a genin? Ijutsu. The blonde snorted. Nah, you learn how to knit and how to bake a cake, he said sarcastically. I really can't remember. Wait, I learned echolocation. Naruto deadpanned at this. You gotta be kidding. Nope. Out of the three of us, I was the only one to pick it up successfully. Your parents named you right, looks like. Iruka stiffened slightly at the mention of his parents, and Naruto noticed it. What? It's nothing. Naruto frowned but decided not to pursue the subject. It was sensitive to the man. The mood was tense until Tsuchi came around and announced it was closing time. The two exited the stand after paying, and the blonde turned to face Iruka. Do you think we could meet here every day? He asked. It's been nice talking with you. Iruka shrugged. Depends. Sometimes my teaching duties are hectic, but I could be here by, he furrowed his brow, 7 or 7:30. But if I don't show, it's just because of my job. He yawned. So yeah? Yeah. With that, Naruto grinned. Be seeing you tomorrow. He was off in an instant. Iruka chuckled. That kid had too much energy. Chapter 4. About 2 weeks later, Guy had them spar together as training. Over the course of these 2 weeks, Naruto had trained relentlessly with Guy and Lee, bettering his strength, stamina, and iron fist form. He still wore the total of 200 pounds worth of weights, but this day he was moving normally. The next day he would double it. He still ate with Iruka, who laughed at stories about Guy and Lee. Tenten could now instinctively aim and fire any kind of projectile, hitting the clone every time. With the staff, she could hold off Guy but not attack, which would open her up to more bruises. The spars would usually end with Tenten giving out to exhaustion despite the fact she had more stamina than before. Niji hadn't learned any new gentle fist techniques as of yet, but he had set his sights on perfecting 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The clone would advise him on errors in his fighting form, and the flaws became rarer and rarer. He too had gained a respectable amount of endurance from the workouts every day. Outwardly, he hated it. Inwardly, he knew it would help. Gentle fist relied on chakra, and these workouts increased his reserves of it. After the workout that day, the three were less tired but still feeling the effects of it. Tenten leaned against the tree as she felt her legs go rubbery, and Naruto paced to keep his muscles from cramping. Niji was stoic as ever, not one complaint slipping from him. Instead of creating the clones as he usually did, Guy spread out his hands in a sweeping gesture. Today, team, is the day for sparring, he announced, grinning down at them. Tenten and Naruto exchanged glances, and Niji kept his stoic demeanor. Naruto wondered at how he would do. He and Tenten were probably on level ground, but he was worried about the eventual spar against Niji. For all of his arrogance, the guy was skilled, but even if Naruto lost, he'd give Niji hell for it. Tenten was nervous. Out of the group, she was probably the weakest, not out of lack of skill but because either boy was skilled in areas she wasn't. On the other hand, she was better than any of them with her weapons. She turned her mind toward the boys. Niji could easily overpower her if he got close, and Naruto could do the same but would be able to close in subtly. She would have to keep her distance and be aware of any trickery from the blonde. Guy held up a fist with 3 straws. Each of you takes 1 straw. Naruto frowned and then cursed when he drew a short one. Niji drew a long straw, earning a glare from the blonde, and Tenten picked the last one, a medium-sized one. Alright. Niji, you get a break today, But that's not fair, complained Naruto. He gets to rest while me and Tenten have to fight 2 in a row. Guy shrugged. Sometimes that happens. You'll get at least 1 break during the spars. But still, it's unfair, I know, but you wouldn't complain if you were getting the break, Naruto, pointed out Guy, silencing Naruto. Fight order, Niji versus Tenten, Naruto versus Tenten, and Niji versus Naruto. Niji went to one edge of the clearing, and Tenten to the other. Niji kept his cool manner as Tenten looked increasingly nervous. A cold sweat was already gathering on her brow. Guy glanced between the two, noting Tenten's anxiety. That's the first sign of a lost cause. Begin. Tenten quickly pulled out a scroll and unfurled it, shooting out several kunai and shuriken. Niji jumped to the left and darted toward her. She threw Senbon toward him, but he simply zigzagged, each of the projectiles whizzing by him. She backed up as he neared, throwing every kind of weapon she could pull out of her scrolls. Naruto cheered on Tenten from the sidelines. Come on! Stick it to him! After the veritable shower of weapons, sheesh, where the hell does she keep all of them? Holsters can't keep that many. Is there something in the scrolls? She's using storage seals, said Guy, Fuinjutsu. Tenten mentioned that the day after the exams the Uzumaki clan was skilled in it. What is Fuinjutsu exactly? He asked. The art of making and using seals. There are many different types of seals, but Tenten uses only storage and I guess explosive. Others can be. Guy looked up, thinking. Actually, there are limitless possibilities if I remember right. To really understand it, you'd have to ask someone else that's an expert. Naruto nodded, and after a pause, can you tell me anything about the Uzumaki clan? Guy looked at him oddly. They didn't teach it in the academy? Don't know. Probably did, and Tenten told me a little about it. Can you tell me more? Sure. The Uzumaki clan, odd coincidence with your name, was highly skilled in Fuinjutsu. They were feared by their enemies and their allies were thankful of escaping their wrath. Konoha was one of their allies, and the Senju Senju? One of the two founding clans of Konoha, the other being the Uchiha clan. Great. Sasuke's part of some great clan, all the more reason to be an asshole, mumbled Naruto. You were saying sensei? He asked in a louder voice. The Senju were distant blood relatives of the Uzumakis, making the alliance all the more stronger. Also, the Uzumaki clan acted as the mediator of the parent clans, ensuring an unbreakable bond. Mediator? That makes them sound too nice. Wrong. A mediator has to be blunt and a threat enough to get the point across. The diplomacy part is optional, explained Guy. The Uzumaki supported the two clans throughout the peacetime after the First Shinobi War, and then fought on their side in all other wars until their downfall in the Third Shinobi War. Their downfall was tragic but inspiring, began Guy. Iwa and Kumo had allied with each other to face a common threat, Yuzu. Konoha was cut off from responding as they were tied up with Suna and Kiri. As Iwa and Kumo marched on the small village, Yuzu made a last stand while trying to evacuate the civilians, elderly, and young. All of the capable Uzumaki stayed behind along with the ninja force. The ensuing battle went on for 3 days until the last man, the Yuzukage Furuza Uzumaki, was killed. The total casualties for Iwa and Kumo, 50,000 out of 60,000. Yuzu 500. Naruto was awestruck. Good God. That's a hell of a number to kill and then only lose 500. Surely there were others that got out, like civilians or the children, hunted down. There were no survivors except for those outside of Yuzu at the time, but unfortunately most have died now. Back in the battle, Tenten was quickly running out of ammunition. She was at half capacity with shuriken, and all of her kunai were gone. She was close to using almost all of her saban, and yet Niji refused to be hit. He constantly changed his pattern and would stop randomly, taking her by surprise. God, where did all the training go? She felt her breathing quicken, and her sweaty hands began to slip on the scrolls. Niji closed the distance between the two, within his and her striking range. Tenten frantically tried to flip backward, but Niji struck her on the leg, deadening it. She collapsed, but rolled away from any more hits. She stood shakily, testing her leg. It regained the feeling in it quickly, so she guessed he hadn't hit any vital nerve or pressure point. Niji narrowed his eyes at her, noticing he had missed, and activated his Byakugan. Naruto squawked in surprise. What the hell? His eyes, what's with the veins? And the weird pupil? That's his Kekkai Genkai, the Byakugan, explained Guy. It is specific to the Hyuga clan, and is considered to be one of the 3 great dojutsu. Naruto frowned. Another missed lesson. What does it do? It gives the user a 360-degree view around them, the range being 50 meters. It also gives the user telescopic and X-ray vision, and he or she can train themselves to increase the range. The final ability is to see the chakra network and flow of chakra. Skilled holders of the Byakugan can manipulate the flow by using their signature style, Gentle Fist. Gentle Fist? It is the opposite of the Iron Fist, but is just as or even more dangerous than it. It utilizes chakra to close or open chakra pathways through tenketsu, tiny chakra gateways essentially. If someone's chakra is sealed, the person cannot use jutsu and is usually incapacitated. Sheesh, no wonder Tenten wants to keep her distance. Damn thing would difficult to beat, but not impossible. Naruto watched the unfolding battle, wondering how he'd fare against. In truth, he probably wouldn't fare any better. In the battle, Tenten cringed as the Hyuga activated his dojutsu, but then she unsealed her staff. Great, now it's over. Close range with Niji never works. She shifted into the combat stance, and Niji settled into his own stance. She jabbed at Niji, who sidestepped and darted at her. Tenten took several steps back and swiped at him, grazing his arms. She followed up with several jabs and whirls of the staff, and he tried to knock it away. Without thinking, she threw back toward herself and caught it. To Guy's surprise, her stance had changed, and not for the worse. She held the staff at a slight angle, and her right hand was positioned near one end of the staff and the other holding it in the middle. Her legs were bent slightly, and her weight looked to be evenly distributed between her feet. It was the advanced stance, noted Guy, the stance that all users hope to one day take, and she did naturally. The two circled cautiously, and Tenten marveled at the feel of her new stance. It feels natural, and the staff feels like it's a part of me now. This is amazing. Niji broke the circle and bolted toward her. She waited until he was in striking range and jumped up, bringing the staff down in a mighty strike. The Hyuga seemed to be puzzled for a second, but then rolled away as the staff smashed into the spot he had been. She flicked her wrist and the staff seemed to move in 2 directions, the action confusing Niji before the weapon slammed into his side. He slid back and glared at Tenten, who surprisingly matched him for it. Niji charged her and expected another midsection strike but instead felt his legs be swept from under him. She tried to hit him with 2 quick overhead strikes while he was defenseless, but he rolled away from those as well. He flipped up and watched her warily. She had never been a match for him up close, but now that had changed. The trick to defeating that staff would be getting uncomfortably close, but he thought it was necessary as he readied for another charge. Niji closed the distance quickly and deflected a strike from the right. He spun while moving forward to get close to her and struck a pressure point on her leg as she lashed out. She fell to one knee but still swiped at his legs with her staff. He jumped to dodge it and struck her on the arms, and they fell numbly to her sides as her staff clattered to the ground. She was defenseless now, and Tenten knew it. Her glare was frustrated as she said, "I forfeit." Naruto groaned at the outcome, but Guy applauded her performance. Niji looked at her coldly and walked away without offering any help. Tenten rose unsteadily, and Naruto walked over and helped her up. She grimaced as she felt her bad leg take her body's weight but thought she could use it before her battle with Naruto. Guy had a few words of advice and praise for her, however. "Tenten, good work with the staff. The new stance you took surprised me. It's advanced and near the mastering level. However, you let nerves affect your aim. You have to calm down before a fight, even if you think you're going to lose," he said, causing Tenten to hang her head. "Don't worry. It's all a part of learning to get better. Nerves are simply an obstacle to overcome." She nodded. "Thanks, Guy-sensei." She picked up her staff and resealed it, the numbness fading from her arms. Naruto took position at one end of the clearing as did Tenten. She checked her weapon scrolls and refilled them from a larger scroll. All the while, her leg's numbness was not returning as fast as she'd liked. "Hey, Tenten." She looked at the concerned blonde. "Are you going to be fine for the spar?" "I'm fine." "No need to worry," said Tenten, hands nearing her holsters in anticipation. Naruto grinned and adopted the iron fist stance. However, there was one difference with his and Guy's. With Guy's, one fist was kept behind him, but Naruto had tucked the fist near his waist. Guy didn't know why Naruto chose to do this, but it was an acceptable stance. The Jonin looked between the two and, seeing that they were ready, ordered, "Begin." Tenten started off by throwing several kunai in his direction, not really hoping to hit him but instead get him to jump, presenting her a perfect target. The blonde, however, did not jump and instead dodged to the right. He threw a few shuriken in a reply and gripped a kunai from his holster. The weapon's mistress deflected the shuriken with a few of her own and shot Sanban at Naruto. He darted to the left but caught several in his arms. Naruto swore and pulled them out quickly, the ends now lightly painted with blood. He looked furiously at Tenten, who smirked. He created 2 clones and charged with them. Tenten pulled out a scroll and out from it shot her staff, catching the blonde by surprise. "What the hell?" A clone caught the staff with its face, and Tenten rushed forward and grabbed the staff and slammed it down on the other clone. Naruto was momentarily stunned by the attack but recovered when he saw the staff slicing toward him. He parried it with his kunai which he holstered afterward. She'd knock it out of his hands if he kept using it. He jabbed at her and then attempted a sweeping kick at her legs. The punch was dodged and kick parried by her staff, which she swung at his head. He crouched and tried another sweeping kick which connected. However, as she fell, Tenten caught herself with one hand and used the other to strike at Naruto. She flipped back after the strike and landed away from him. The staff grazed him as he tilted back, and Naruto responded with a series of punches, rolls, and kicks, all which were dodged or blocked by Tenten. "This is getting out of hand," he thought after narrowly dodging a retaliation strike from his opponent. "I need to get that staff. If I can get it, then I can win." She jabbed at the blonde, who stepped to the side. How to get it is the problem. He jumped backwards out of striking range and studied Tenten. She slid back into her stance and waited. Niji got in close to fight her, thought Naruto. That's something to try, but I don't think it'll work twice. I might try to catch the staff, and I might end up breaking my hand. He mentally shrugged and rushed his opponent, who swung at his right side as soon as he was close enough. He blocked it with his forearm and grabbed it with his other hand, pulling her forward and off balance. He raised a fist to hit her side, but she rolled between his legs and snatched her staff away from him. Naruto leapt away, but Tenten charged him and jumped with the staff ready for a shattering blow. The blonde narrowed his eyes but waited. Same with the chunin. No, not yet. The whistling of the staff was getting louder. Naruto sidestepped as the staff crashed to the ground next to him. He felt the wind coming off of it. He placed a foot on it and kicked out Tenten, who released it and slid back. He grabbed the weapon and threw it behind him, and Tenten scowled angrily at him. "If you broke it, you bought it." As he sped towards her, he smirked. "Don't worry. If I'd wanted to break it, you would have seen me do it." At the last word, he jabbed at her. She dodged it and jumped over him in an attempt to retrieve her weapon. Naruto, however, caught her foot and threw her to the ground. She lay there, dazed, as Naruto grabbed her collar and winded back a fist. "Gotcha. Screw you too," she mumbled, 2 losses in 1 day. He smiled and let her go. "Cheer up. Maybe in 10 years or so will you be able to beat me." "Ah, screw you some more." You're so original sometimes, Ten. Guy clapped once, bringing their attention to him. Good work, both of you. Ten. Seems the nerves didn't get to you, but that may be because of your easier opponent. The Jonin grinned at Naruto, who glared back. And Naruto, your technique was good even though it was pretty much useless against her staff, and I would advise to limit those waiting tricks. Only those who have extremely fast reflexes can do them safely. The blonde shrugged. I have fast reflexes. Oh, do you? Naruto jumped and whipped around to find Guy standing behind him. He looked at the guy in front of him and watched it slowly fade. And after him, sheesh, he's fast. Alright, I don't, but I can still see the other's moves. That counts, Guy sighed. Just don't do that waiting trick anymore. Only if it's a last resort. Naruto nodded and rubbed his arms where the Senbon had struck him. He turned toward Ten, who had gotten her staff. Nice aim. Expect anything else? Yeah. Thought you'd be nervous, or is Neji stronger than me? That, she said, will be decided in the next fight. Naruto grinned and looked at Neji. The Hyuga eyed him coldly, trying to intimidate him. However, the blonde would have none of it. Come on, team. Quit giving me the evil eye and take position. Ten frowned slightly. What about your arms? The Senbon? Naruto glanced at her and pulled up his sleeve. There were no signs that he had ever been struck by the needles, and her eyes widened. I heal fast. Don't know why, but I'm thankful for it. Uzumaki-san, take position, said Neji with a slight mocking tone. He stood at one end of the clearing, arms crossed. Oh, you're finally ready, team? Do not call me that. I've got to have an asshole to call team, and that's you, team, taunted the blonde, walking to his end. Neji inhaled deeply to calm himself. You are going to regret ever calling me that, he threatened, adopting his stance and activating his dojutsu. I doubt it. I'm still fresh even though I didn't have a break. Ten glowered at him and made a rude gesture in his direction. Guy shook his head. Can't wait till missions, he thought sarcastically. Begin. Kick his ass, Naruto. Cheered Ten in spite of what he had said, but then I wouldn't mind if Neji beat yours. Guy facepalmed. Out of the trio, Naruto and Ten were the closest friends, but sometimes it didn't seem like it. Yeah, right. Shouted Naruto, hastily throwing together a plan. Either it would work, or he would crash and burn. He threw a few shuriken at Neji to see how he would react, but Neji dodged to the right and ran at him, Byakugan activated. Naruto backed up a few steps and created 10 clones. They all ran to meet Neji head-on, and when they collided, hell broke loose. Neji slid and threw out his shoulder, catching the first in the chest. He stumbled back into the others and tripped them up. Some managed to avoid the pile-up and fight with Neji, and he smirked and beckoned them mockingly with a hand. One punched, but Neji knocked his fist away and clapped him on the chest. He dispelled, and 2 more clones emerged from the smoke. Both tried to punch him, but he parried them and jumped and kicked them in the head. They sailed away, and before he landed, 2 clones positioned themselves on both his sides. He landed, and the one behind him tried to grab him, but Neji somehow saw him. As soon as the clone put hands on him, Neji threw him over his shoulder into the other, and the 2 vanished into smoke. The others had just untangled themselves from the pile-up, but Neji descended upon them and wiped them out. The memories Naruto received did not bode well for him, and he hurried to close his gaping mouth. Well, crap. Although he had to change whether he looked behind or in front of him, but it looks like he can see all around him all the time. Great. Just dandy. He made another group of 10 clones, but these were more hesitant, something that Neji took advantage of. 2 were gone in quick succession of gentle fist strikes, and a third lasted long enough to gape at the display before being forcefully struck with both palms, sending it flying. Neji gripped another by the collar and threw him into 2 others and struck them in the gut with open palms. 2 maneuvered behind him despite knowing about his vision, and when they kicked out at him, Neji stepped back behind them and chopped at their necks. The last couple froze, and he smirked before dispelling them with quick jabs of his fingers. Naruto was sweating slightly, but he quickly threw a shuriken at the now advancing Neji. He dodged it and spun and attempted to land a vicious blow on Naruto. Naruto jumped backwards and watched Neji cautiously. The option of taking off his weights occurred to him, but as he reached for the clasps, Guy shook his head. Regret turning his stomach, Naruto took up the iron fist stance again. Why? He asked as the blonde landed. Why do you resist fate? You can never defeat me or accomplish your pathetic dream of becoming Hokage. There is not even the slightest chance. Because, started Naruto, ditching his strategy and opting for a more direct approach by charging the Hyuga, I want to prove dash. He punched at Neji, who deflected it and followed up with his own strike. To myself and to the village that dash, Naruto dodged the blow. I'm not a weakling or trash, Neji snorted. He landed a glancing blow to Naruto's arms. Fate is determined from the day you are born, he said venomously as he tried to jab a finger at Naruto's tenketsu. You might as well surrender yourself to its current. Then tell me this, then, dash. Naruto moved out of the way of Neji's jab and tried to sweep his legs out from under him, which failed as the Hyuga stepped out of range. How did I, the dead last of the academy, dash? Naruto dodged a kick from Neji and retaliated with a right hook while still saying, graduate a year early and get on this team. Niji narrowed his eyes but kept his silence as he sent a flurry of jabs at Naruto. The blonde held up his arms to defend himself, but was sent sliding back a few feet. He mentally checked if he could still use chakra in his arms and inwardly sighed in relief when he could. He asked, returning his attention to the Hyuga. Naruto threw a few shuriken again pointlessly, and the Hyuga smirked as they fell short. Looks like I just fooled fate and swam against that current, said Naruto as he charged forward. Niji shifted his weight to catch the frontal blow that never came as Naruto switched with a shuriken and landed a powerful punch to his jaw. Niji collapsed to the ground in a heap. I never gave up the hope of proving to myself that I am strong, he finished. Tenten's jaw dropped as Naruto ended the battle. Wow. I knew Naruto was good, but to beat Niji, Guy grinned. Looks like Iron Fist can beat Gentle Fist. Take that, Hayashi. Naruto let out a breath that he hadn't realized he had been holding and offered a hand to Niji, only for him to be replaced with a log. What? Wait, shit. The Hyuga appeared in front of Naruto, a smug sneer on his face. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 palms. Niji delivered the final palm to Naruto's chakra center, and the blonde looked confused before he fell to the ground face first. Niji turned his back. Failure, he spat, walking away. Naruto groaned, but then he said something that made Niji halt. Don't count me out yet, team. He struggled to push himself up, and his legs shook as he stood. I can still beat your ass like this. His mouth was bloodied, but the flame in his eyes was bright. Turn around so we can go again. You shouldn't be moving, said Niji, turning. I blocked half your chakra points. Your breathing should be labored right now. Believe me, it hurts to breath, but that's nothing. He made the clone hand sign again. Now bring it. Why? Demanded Niji. You're defeated. You have nothing, but yet you continue on. What gives you that energy? Why? Because, struggled Naruto. I was called a failure. He created one more clone, and they charged. Niji's anger flared unexpectedly at Naruto's words, and he wondered why he had such a reaction. Naruto's words were ridiculous, weren't they? Yes, they had to be right. Niji shook away the thought and reacted to Naruto's last-ditch effort. He flipped over the original and kicked the clone under the jaw. He landed behind Naruto and touched a single nerve in his back. Naruto's body locked up, and he fell over like timber. Naruto! Cried Tenten, running over to them. Niji regarded the person before him cruelly. Fool! You never had a chance. Naruto! You alright? Asked Tenten frantically, shaking the blonde. The blonde didn't respond and Tenten thought the worst, that somehow Niji had killed him. Then Naruto groaned and blinked his eyes, and her worry turned into irritated relief. Get up! You worried me. She punched him in the arm, issuing another groan from Naruto. Quit that, he argued weakly, it hurts. You're gonna hurt a lot more if you don't get up. I don't think you could hurt me anymore, Tenten. Get up or I'll prove you wrong. Naruto blinked blearily again and slowly sat up. Good. You had me worried there for a second. Naruto flashed a small, painful grin at her. Thanks for worrying, Ka-san. Tenten winded her fist back but then lowered it and said in a sickly sweet tone, You, re-welcome, Otoro-kun. Naruto glared at her but didn't move. That was a low blow. You called me old. No, I didn't. Not directly anyway. Indirectly is what a girl always looks for, little one. You've got to learn that. Naruto scowled at the name, and shook his head. You're mean sometimes, he grinned wickedly. But remember who lost 2 times in a row today. Tenten growled at him, and punched him in the arm, hard. He groaned again as pain flared through his body and punched back though with considerably less force. Tenten responded by giving the blonde a playful noogie, and the blonde struggled. There. That'll teach you, she said, letting him go and ruffling his hair. Guy smiled and Niji rolled his eyes. Alright, you two. These spars conclude the training for today. You're dismissed. Naruto rolled his neck after training with Guy and Lee. He was still feeling the effects of the ruthless regimen they did, but admittedly Naruto was starting to enjoy it. Not to the point of letting Guy brainwash him, but he enjoyed the challenge it presented. He looked at the setting sun and sighed. Those two could and would train until midnight, but Naruto had no time for that. Besides, he could rely on other things besides taijutsu, unlike Lee. The blonde shook his head at the thought of the jutsu-less genin. The boy had a rough road ahead of him. The blonde walked in the direction of his favorite ramen stand, not really paying attention. Boisterous noise from an alley drew him towards it, and he peered into the alley. 3 teens surrounded a small figure on the ground and were kicking it and shouting insults at it. Naruto was reminded about the day he defended Hinata, and protective anger flooded through him. Hey, bastards! Leave that person alone! He yelled, making the boys turn to face him. Hey, look! It's the demon boy, said a pig-faced one. Touch him again and I will show why I'm called that. Snarled Naruto, cracking his knuckles. One, unfazed by the anger, taunted, Faye. You look more like a than a dash. He never finished as Naruto tore toward the boy, hands clenched into fists. The first punch sent the boy sailing, and a second caused one to collapse with a broken nose. The remaining one looked at him fearfully but with a spark of recognition. Why you're that KK kid. Oh, you're the same damn group that bullied Hinata? Looks like you never learn. Naruto grinned evilly as he recognized the voice. He appeared next to the teen in an instant. Run to mommy now, he whispered. The teen gulped and stumbled out of the alley. Naruto looked at the others, and his lip curled in disgust. Bastards, attacking something smaller than them. Bastards and cowards. The blonde turned to see who or what the figure was, and frowned slightly. It was a small boy, shabbily dressed but looked healthy enough. His wide brown eyes looked in awe and fear at Naruto. The blonde offered a hand, and the boy looked at it before taking it. Thank you, he breathed. Naruto smiled and nodded. Just wanted to help. I don't particularly like bullies, and I've run into them before. I heard you. Hope you didn't hear everything. If you did, don't repeat some of those words around your parents, said Naruto lightly before walking away. Wait. Naruto turned his head. You're the demon that everyone talks about, he shrugged. Yeah, I guess. Demon is what everyone calls me when they think I can't hear them, he smiled sadly. I can hear every word. Oh, the boy kicked the ground with his toe. Well, I don't think you're a demon. Naruto Uzumaki. Uzumaki-san, sir. Naruto looked oddly at the boy before breaking into laughter. I don't think anyone's ever called me san or a sir before, he replied, wiping his eyes. What's your name? Tuza. Just Tuza. He patted Tuza's head. Well, Tuza-san, run along now. I bet your parents are worried. He nodded and smiled at Naruto before taking off out into the street. Naruto watched the boy disappear around the corner and smiled slightly. Nice little guy. I wish more people were like him, thought the blonde before heading to Ichiraku. The trip there was short, or so it seemed to Naruto, whose mind had wandered again. He pushed the flaps away and sat on one of the seats. Iruka still hadn't arrived yet. Naruto was early anyway. He usually went home to change into his more comfortable clothes. He waited until the chunin arrived even though his stomach growled, and he earned several odd looks from the other patrons. When Iruka arrived, Naruto said irritably, Took your time, didn't you? There was a test today, and the papers took longer to grade, explained Iruka, waving over Ayam. She took their orders and shouted them to her dad in the back. Naruto looked at Iruka and decided to start the conversation. Today we had sparring. And? Well, I won one and lost the other. This is your first spar, right? He nodded. You did better than I did. I lost to both my teammates. I was the laughingstock until I beat them the next time. Iruka grinned. That victory felt great to say the least. Who was the unlucky one? Tenten, you know, the weapons girl? I've told you about her. Yeah, and I keep wondering if you have a crush on this girl. The blonde snorted. She's pretty and nice but more of a friend than anything. I'm serious. Plus I know she doesn't like me. She likes Niji, the prick of the group. The chunin smiled, amused. There's one on almost every team. It's just the extent of the prickishness. And I feel sorry that you missed out on her. Oh, shut up, Iruka-sensei, or I'll start on you and Ayam. Iruka blushed, drawing a smirk from Naruto. And Niji takes the cake of prickishness. He makes Sasuke look damn sociable, said Naruto, leaning back in his chair. Iruka chuckled, and both quit talking as the food came. After they finished, Iruka asked, Anything other exciting things happened today? Naruto hesitated before saying, Well, I helped this kid with some bullies on the way here. Taught them a lesson. I knocked out 2 of the 3. The other ran. That was a noble thing to do. I'm proud of you, Naruto. Naruto smiled. Thanks. He turned toward Iruka. Do you know of anyone called Tuza? Tuza? He didn't give me a last name. I'm afraid I don't. If you could ask about his last name, that might clear things up. Well, if I run into him again, I'll ask. Iruka nodded and paused, debating whether or not to ask one particular question. Naruto saw the pause. What is it? Did the bullies, or the boy for that matter, call you anything? The bullies called me the usual, but Tuza didn't. He did recognize me as the demon boy, but didn't run away in fear. Said he didn't think I was a demon. Even called me Naruto-san. He smiled wistfully. I wish more people like him. He repeated the thought he had had. Most people aren't. Yeah. I hate that too, but that's just how the world works. For the people who don't like me, I just prank em, and for the people I do like, I still prank em. You've stopped this year. Yeah. The blonde grinned at the chunin. I bet you're glad. They always caught your attention a lot of the time. Iruka laughed. Yeah, they did. Painting the entire academy neon pink is going to make anyone turn around. They both laughed. After the two had stopped, Naruto asked, Hey, Iruka-sensei, did you teach about the Uzumaki clan in the academy? Yeah, but you weren't there. I remember it because Sasuke was fuming about you sharing the name of a clan with equal, or greater power than his. It was pretty funny, actually, said Iruka, an amused grin coming on. I should have been there. I could have made fun of him, and then you two would have a fight. Sometimes it was best for you to skip to avoid Sasuke. And why do you ask, by the way? Well, Tenten uses a ninja art called Fuinjutsu, and Gai-sensei tried to explain it, but said to ask someone else more experienced. The blonde glanced at Iruka. Do you know anything about it? Yeah, but what did Gai-sen tell you? Naruto retold what his sensei had said, and after that the chunin nodded. He told you of it, and he was right. There are limitless possibilities for the art. Then why haven't I heard of everyone using Fuinjutsu? It's a time-consuming topic to learn about. It usually takes about 10 years for someone to achieve the rank of expert, and another 10 to be a master. There are geniuses, of course. The Yandame was one. He was a master in about 10 years. Naruto smiled at the mention of his idol. Yandame, he was really powerful, wasn't he? He was able to kill the Kyuubi, and that's no small thing. Guilt flicked across Iruka's face at Naruto's words. The blonde had no clue, but then neither of the other kids did. Naruto asked something, bringing Iruka from his thoughts. Do you know any Fuinjutsu, Iruka-sensei? He nodded. Yeah, but I focus more on the defensive side of it. Barriers and such, he added at the confused look on Naruto's face. I started when I was a little bit older than you, but since I haven't progressed much, I've never had time for it. How do you learn Fuinjutsu exactly? It's a bunch of theory and experimentation. Theory to learn how to make a seal, and experimentation to make sure your seal works and doesn't blow up. It can be that dangerous? Definitely. We've lost people to defective explosive seals. The theory part, is it reading? Mostly. Naruto groaned. That's why it's not well known. Most people would rather train or practice jutsu than read. Those who do pursue this, though, become very powerful. The blonde grunted. I was considering taking it up, but now he shrugged. Iruka laughed. It's not that bad. Tell you what, this weekend, come to the academy after it releases, and I'll show you some basics. That'd mean cutting my training short. I'm sure Gai-san would understand, and if you don't like it, you won't have to cut your training short anymore. Naruto frowned, considering. After a moment, he agreed, alright. But I warn you, I probably won't like it. That's too much dull reading. Iruka shrugged. It's not that bad. He grinned. Just don't paint the academy again. Naruto chuckled. Too bad. I had plans to paint it bright orange, and then everyone will know who did it. They laughed again. After the laughter stopped, Naruto leaned forward with a small smile on his face and put his arms on the table. He seemed to be deep in thought, and Iruka took it as the cue to leave. He rose and paid for his meal and, as an afterthought, Naruto's. Before he left, however, thanks, Iruka-sensei. For what? The food? It's not a problem dash. No. For everything. God damn it. Why are we stuck doing chores? Demanded Tenten, pulling up a weed fiercely. Naruto sighed. She had been ranting along similar lines for the past half hour, and, even though he agreed with her, it was starting to grind on Naruto's nerves. I mean, she continued, academy students could do this. Hell, the damn gardener could do this. Why get Ninja to do it? We should be patrolling or escorting some fat merchant to some meeting of other fat merchants dash. Calm down, Tenten, said Guy. Naruto was amazed he was patient enough to deal with her. He himself would have already lost it. This is team building, not skill building, and this isn't hard dash. Exactly. It isn't challenging. And if you want a team building, why don't you give us an exercise that improves it? Not some lame-ass chore dash. Tenten, said Guy forcefully, you are disturbing the power of dash. Don't you even dare bring some youth crap up. I don't care if I'm disturbing anything. I want to beat some bandit ass. The constant yelling was really setting Naruto's teeth on edge, and so he did the one thing to shut her up. He kicked her in the shin. Oh. Son of a Naruto. I don't have a son, or at least I hope not, deadpanned the blonde, going back to pulling weeds. Tenten rubbed the spot he had kicked and threw Naruto a black look. What? I had to shut you up somehow. You didn't have to break my leg. For that, I could have taken off my weights and dropped them on your leg. They were heavy enough, and I'd be happy to do it. It had been about a month since the first spars. There had been other spars, all ending up like the first set. Naruto was irked that he couldn't beat Neji, but knew that was because he lacked formal training which Neji had been receiving all his life. The meeting with Iruka about Fuinjutsu had gone well. Naruto, even though he was dealing with Tenten, smiled a bit as he remembered it. His old class had just come out of the classroom when they had seen him. Kiba had laughed and gave him a high five, but Sasuke had rolled his eyes. Naruto had ignored him and talked to Iruka. Once the teacher had explained basics, Naruto had pored over scrolls containing Fuinjutsu theory. He liked the ninja art. It reminded him of a puzzle, but a puzzle that blew up in his face. At the end of the lesson, Naruto had asked where the Fuinjutsu books were located in the library. As soon as Iruka gave an answer, Naruto had nodded and taken off through the door. Naruto! Screamed Tenten next to Naruto's ear. The blonde jumped and clutched his ear. Oh! Watch the dial, sheesh! He replied, his ear ringing. He glared up at Tenten. Well, while you were off in Dreamland, me and Neji finished the whole damned garden, she said, crossing her arms. The blonde rolled his eyes. Thanks for that, Tenten. Looks like you stopped complaining for a whole minute and actually did something, he remarked sarcastically. Neji stood beside Tenten, arms crossed much like hers, but he remained silent. If you're going to say anything, team, say it now. The Hyuga shook his head exasperatedly and walked away. Guy shouted to get their attention. Team 9. Gather. Tenten helped Naruto up, the two still bickering, and Niji kept his stoic appearance as the pair came closer. I had to get your attention, since you obviously weren't in this realm, shouted Tenten, answering a question Naruto had asked out of earshot. You could have shaken me, kicked me, slapped me don't tempt me, the blonde began to reply, but Guy cut him off. Alright, D-rank mission successful. Now we report back to Hokage Tower. Naruto nodded, not really listening and still glaring at Tenten. He didn't worry about losing his way. The team had been to mission report 3 times already. On the way back, Guy suddenly halted. Seems we have a shadow, he said, turning around. Okay, show yourself. A small boy with brown hair and eyes peeked out of an alley, and Naruto immediately recognized him. Tuza. Right. The boy nodded. Guy looked at Naruto. You know him? Yeah, rescued him from a couple of bullies about a month ago. He continued in a louder voice, but I thought he had forgotten about me. Tuza looked scared. But it's alright. The boy smiled slightly but looked hesitantly at Niji and Tenten. Tenten smiled at him, and Niji studied Tuza coolly. Naruto walked over to him. What do you need, Tuza-san? Just call me Tuza please, sir, he said meekly. The blonde smiled. Alright, Tuza, what ya need? Well I was going to ask how do I say this? Tuza murmured. Naruto knelt down at the boy's level. He cocked his head curiously. What? Well, can you, train me? Tuza squeaked. Naruto furrowed his brow at the boy's request, and then laughed a bit. What? What's so funny? I don't think I'd be a good teacher. Do you even go to the academy? Tuza nodded. Then why ask me? Well, my sensei doesn't like to deal with us after school, so I thought about asking someone to help me, and I thought about you. You're nice. Naruto smiled. Who's your sensei? Kitame. Oh, don't know him. And, by the way, why not ask earlier? Well, I am kinda shy. I've been following you for the past couple of weeks trying to be brave enough to ask, but Tuza shrugged, I couldn't. Naruto snapped his head toward Guy at Tuza mentioning he had been following them for quite some time. There was a surprised look on his face. It was clear today was the first day he had sensed him. To fool even me, a jonin, that's remarkable, thought Guy. He, however, said sorry, Tuza-san. I'm afraid we can't stick around for much longer. We've got to deliver a mission report to Hokage Tower. We'd pulling some mission? Asked Tuza incredulously. I thought you had chores. See? Even he thinks it's a chore. Yelled Tenten, making a face at Guy. The jonin sighed exasperatedly, and rubbed his temples. Anyway, Tuza-san, Naruto probably can't teach you because he has his own training to do. Right. Said Guy, looking at Naruto. The blonde frowned but had to agree. Between team training with Guy and Lee, and Fuinjutsu study, he really didn't have much free time. Could he tag along to watch, though? He asked. Guy shrugged. If he can keep up. Tuza's face lit up, and he nodded happily. The jonin smiled. So energetic. He turned to head to the Hokage Tower, and his team, along with their new shadow. Naruto quickly blocked a shattering punch from Lee and threw one of his own. He, Lee, Guy and Tuza were at a training field. Naruto wasn't sure which one. Tuza sat beneath a tree spectating, and Guy stood off to the side of the taijutsu spar, monitoring it. Naruto had his jacket off, and several bruises were visible on his arms, most of them on his forearms. Guy had tried to convince Naruto to wear bandages like Lee, but he had declined. The bruises cleared up in a day for the blonde, much to the confusion of Lee. Guy had a theory why Naruto healed so fast. Naruto dodged a kick, and retaliated with a jab and kick of his own. This spar had been going on for about 5 minutes, Naruto mainly on the defensive and only lashing out after Lee's own attacks. Even then his attacks weren't damaging enough to affect Lee. He might as well be tickling him with a feather. Lee suddenly vanished from in front of him, and the blonde's eyes widened. Where'd he go? Lee appeared to Naruto's immediate left, and leveled him with a thrusting kick to the ribs. Naruto tumbled but caught himself to face Lee. Sharp pain flared in the place he had been kicked, and he winced. God, Lee, this is a friendly spar, not a grudge match. Did I hurt you, Naruto-san? You probably cracked a rib, said Naruto, but then the sharpness of the pain faded into a dull ache, that's now healed. With that regeneration, Naruto-san, I do not think I could hurt you even if I tried. I doubt that. Naruto rolled his shoulders. Alright, ready when you are. Lee took up his stance and then blurred to the right. Damn it! The same speed, so fast even with his weights on. A whistling from Naruto's right alerted him to an incoming punch that he twisted to dodge. Using his momentum, he landed a glancing kick on Lee's side. Part! Shouted Guy, and the two combatants flipped away from each other. Lee was breathing slightly, but Naruto was panting. Lee extended a hand to shake Naruto's. That was an exciting match, Naruto-san, remarked Lee as they shook hands. Yes, it was, agreed Naruto, grinning, but no different from the other 40 or something. I do not know, said Lee, tenderly where Naruto had kicked him. I can see and feel your progress. You are a fast learner. Naruto shrugged noncommittally, and Guy motioned that his training was over. Since the blonde had begun to study Fuinjutsu, his lessons with Guy and Lee had been shortened. Naruto had about an hour and a half to study each day. Naruto went to sit underneath the tree where Tuza sat and plopped down. He sighed heavily as he leaned back against the tree. Tuza gazed as Guy and Lee began to spar, throwing punches that would have killed the blonde, and then looked at Naruto. They can really fight, can't they, sir? The blonde sighed again, exasperatedly. You don't have to call me sir, Tuza. Or if you do, I'll call you Tuza-san. Yes, Naruto-san. The blonde shrugged. It was something. To answer your question, yes, they can really fight. A particularly punishing blow caught Lee on the jaw and sent him rolling into a tree. However, he sprung up with a loud whoop and continued the battle. Both of the boys blinked in disbelief. And I don't know how they're that indestructible, said Naruto lamely. He pulled a backpack hanging from a branch and rummaged in it. Now where did it go? Ow, nicked my finger, there it is. He pulled out a scroll labeled Entry into Fuinjutsu, Storage Seals. He unrolled it and started to study, Tuza looking over his shoulder. Suddenly, Naruto straightened and looked at Tuza curiously. You know, I really don't know you that much. Care to tell anything useful tidbits? Family? School? Age? I'm 7.5, stated Tuza sagely. Naruto blinked at him and tried not to laugh at the boy's serious face. What's so funny, Naruto-san? The blonde shook his head, not daring to speak. Tuza looked like he was about to say more, but didn't. Anything else, Tuza? Tuza stared into space. I'm just above the dead last in the academy, I think. Or I'm the dead last. I can't remember. Naruto smiled sympathetically. Yeah, I know how you feel. I was the dead last before I graduated, but I still graduated. Tuza's eyes widened. You were the last dead last, Naruto-san? Well, not the last, but second to last. I have no clue who's last now. That's amazing. Naruto grinned. Not really. All I really did to graduate was to have some really good luck. He looked over at Tuza. Ever heard about my exploits, though? Tuza nodded, a mirthful grin coming onto his small face. You painted the academy pink one time. No one knows how you did it, but you did. He leaned toward Naruto conspiratorially. Can you tell me your secrets? Pretty please? Tuza made puppy eyes at the blonde. No fair. I must resist. Afraid I can't, Tuza. With great power comes great responsibility which you have none of. And you do? Good point. They both laughed. Naruto began to read again, and for about 10 minutes there was silence before Naruto asked, Tuza, do you have any family? The blonde had assumed he did. He looked cheerful enough. The boy fidgeted, obviously uncomfortable. He tried to change the subject. Can I ask questions now? Naruto wanted to press but could tell family was a sensitive subject for the boy. How about this, proposed the blonde. I'll tell about my family, and you tell about yours. Tuza looked hesitantly at Naruto, the energy from him now gone. He nodded slowly, uncertainly. All right. My family? I have none. Killed in the Kyuubi attack, I've been told. Tuza looked at Naruto with something like empathy. He looked at his feet and wiggled them to distract himself. Naruto waited patiently for the boy to speak, but from the look, he had guessed Tuza was an orphan himself. Finally Tuza stuttered, WWL, I have no family either. Naruto nodded and returned to reading, not wanting to pry too much. A tear ran down Tuza's cheek, and he wiped it away impatiently. They sat quietly for a minute until the younger one spoke. See, can I ask you questions and now? The blonde nodded and smiled encouragingly as Tuza calmed. Tuza stared at the ground for a few seconds, thinking, before looking up and grinning devilishly. His energy had returned. How'd you get those whisker marks? These? Naruto tapped his cheeks. Yeah, Naruto joked, I'm part kitty cat. Meow. Really? Said Tuza, gazing at him wide-eyed. Where are your ears? I thought cat people had big ears. I'm hiding them really well. These are just decoys. Naruto pulled his ears out and stuck his tongue out at Tuza. The boy laughed. Nah, I'm just teasing you, little guy. But I like cats. I don't know where I got these whisker marks. I've had them since I was born. I think they're birthmarks. I wish I had cool birthmarks. Naruto laughed and resumed his studies in comfortable silence. Soon, after a half hour, he left, saying it was getting close to his curfew at the orphanage. Naruto furrowed his brow as the boy mentioned the orphanage. He really couldn't remember much of his short stay, but knew they had ignored him for the most part. It made him very independent very fast, and soon he had received his own apartment on the orders of the Hokage. He shrugged and began to pore over matrices and storage seals. The next day, Tenten was laid out on the ground while both Naruto and Neji panted slightly. Guy was beaming in front of them. The cause of their exhaustion was their new training routine. 75 laps and 150 push-ups and sit-ups. This was the third day of the workout, but the three were still getting used to it. All right, team. Let's get down to the real training, exclaimed Guy. The team slowly stood in front of him, waiting for him to make clones, but none came. Sensei? Aren't you going to make clones or something? Asked Tenten. Nope. We are climbing trees today. Before they could comment, or specifically Tenten, like this, he climbed up a nearby tree, but with one important detail. He was using only his feet. Tenten gawked at him hanging from a tree branch, and Naruto's eyebrows rose in surprise. Only Niji didn't react, as expected. We're climbing trees with chakra, explained Guy enthusiastically, flipping down. You focus chakra to your feet, and then press them against the tree. Hopefully, with a few steps, you're sticking to the tree. If not, well, you fall. Now, the one that may have trouble will be Naruto. Do you know why Naruto? The blonde scratched his head, searching for an answer. Well, I have a lot of chakra, and if you have a lot of something, it's hard to control. So my amount of chakra will mess with learning this? That's right. Darn it. Tenten clapped him on the back heartily. Cheer up. Anyone would love to have your level chakra. I know I would. Jealous? Asked Naruto with a grin. She ruffled his hair. Not even a little bit. You'll be waving up at me when I'm first up the tree. Yeah, because I'll already be done and waiting for you. Before Tenten could react and likely punch him, a rustle whispered from the edge of the clearing, and Tuza crept out of the bushes. Hello, Tuza-san, greeted Guy. The boy waved. Guy started to order his team to begin, but a fact occurred to him. Tuza-san, isn't there academy today? Tuza froze and looked guiltily at the jonin. Why yes. Guy looked pointedly at him. Then why aren't you there? Well you see it's kinda boring, answered Tuza meekly, head down. That doesn't mean anything. Now I don't mind you watching, but when the academy is in session you should go. But no buts. Naruto cut in to defend the boy. Come on, sensei. Watching actual ninja train has to teach more than sitting and reading. He turned toward Tuza. Actually, I'm kind of proud of you, sneaky devil. Soon I'll have to learn from you. Tuza glowed, but Guy quickly burst his bubble. Tuza-san, he said, I'm afraid I can't let you watch during academy hours. You and I would get in trouble, and I'd like to avoid that. Go back to the academy. Tuza nodded sadly and disappeared into the brush, his head hanging. After a few seconds, the jonin couldn't hear anything. It's like he's a ghost or something. He can make so little sound, thought Guy uneasily. As soon as Tuza had gone, the jonin returned his attention to his students. Alright, back to what I was saying. Naruto, you will have the most trouble with this, I'm sure. Tenten or Neige, one of you will finish first, though I think Niji will. Niji smirked at this, and Tenten fumed. Now get a tree. Each member of the team got a tree, each located near each other, and waited for their sensei's command. Begin! They started to slowly walk to the highest branch, and the first to fall was Naruto, who immediately got up and paused before trying again. Tenten got halfway before she fell, and Niji was 3/4 up before he did. Each time any one of them fell, they would catch themselves with their hands and land slightly back. Sometimes they would stop, consider their problem, and then refocus their chakra. 3 hours passed, and Niji became the first one to the top. He sneered triumphantly down at his team. Tenten was panting slightly, but she had made it 3/4 up. She glared at Niji. Screw you, Niji, she breathed. Naruto had made it halfway and was mentally trying to figure out the problem. I know I have terrible control, but it was worse than I thought. Just how low do I have to go? He leaked an infinitesimal drop of chakra to his feet, and slowly made his way up. He passed his mark, then Tenten's, and then he grabbed the branch Niji was sitting on, and pulled himself up. God, nearly lost it in the end. He grinned at Niji, who now looked annoyed. God damn it! Screamed Tenten. Chapter 6. Target 2 meters in front of me. Kitsune report? Roger that, snipe. Have visual on target. Omni you? I have the target in sight. Nothing escapes my eyes. Alright team. Leader here. Move in slowly. Snipe, don't try to kill it. Again. I could paralyze it dash. That would sound better. Guy rolled his eyes and took his finger off of the transmitter. Time to see how they did. He was crouched comfortably on a tree near his team, all of whom were hidden very well in the brush. Alright, I'm the stealthiest one here dash. That's yet to be determined, Kitsune-san. Shut it, Omni team. Anyway, I sneak around and flush it toward you dash. Are you trying to get us killed? No, snipe. You have the bag? Yeah, then use it. Screw off. I knew that. You hear yourself right now? Kitsune, I swear, I will release that demon of a pet on you if you dash. Team 9. Hi. A shadow crept out of a bush underneath Guy, and by the hair, it was Naruto. He crawled on his stomach toward a crouched figure in the middle of a clearing about 6 feet ahead of him. It seemed to be investigating something in front of it, its head lowered. Naruto slowly circled around the figure. At one moment, it seemed to have sensed him as it raised its nose and sniffed the wind. The blonde froze and then relaxed when the figure looked back down. Alright, when I give the signal, whispered Naruto. He raised a closed fist and waited for a moment. He then unclenched it, and waved them forward as he rose and bolted toward the figure. Come here! You effing demon! Shouted Naruto, starting it and causing to dart in the direction of the emerging Niji and Tenten. As it saw them, the figure lunged and lashed out with sharp claws, catching both of their cheeks. Damn cat! Yelled Tenten. Niji's eyes, with his dojutsu active, twitched as he followed the figure, which was exactly what Tenten said what it was, a cat. She pounced with a bag in her hands and pinned the pet, which turned and started to claw at her. Ack! A little help would be nice. Niji rushed over and clamped down on the bag, earning him a few scratches on the arms. He picked it up and twisted the opening, effectively trapping the malicious cat inside. You guys okay? Shouted Naruto, jumping down from a nearby branch. Tenten glared at him. You really are trying to get us killed, aren't you? She deadpanned. What? No. What makes you say that? Asked Naruto innocently. Alright, that's it. I'm gonna strangle you in your sleep tonight. I swear on it. Fine. It'd be fun to see you sneaking around my neighborhood at night, Naruto teased. Tenten didn't break her glare as Guy emerged from the bushes around them. Well, team, if Tenten is done, why don't we head back to Hokage Tower? He asked. The blonde nodded, deciding to look outside his apartment window just in case Tenten really followed through with her threat. With the cat struggling in the bag, the team made their out of the forest and out into the village. It was still early morning, having taken the mission in place of individual training. Naruto looked back at his sensei. Hey, Guy-sensei, are we gonna take another mission? Probably. I might try to get us a C rank though, replied Guy. Tenten stopped and regarded him with huge eyes. Really? Something besides these chores? Guy laughed. Yes. We've gone on about 7 DS, so a single C should do. I guess all of you know about the ranking of missions? All of them nodded. It was a simple alphabetical ranking from D to A, and then after A, S. Naruto smiled along with his teammate. Finally. I'm tired to doing these chores. I want to get out of the village. Niji had objection, however. Sensei, I do not think Uzumaki-san and Tenten-san are ready. C ranks are certainly more dangerous than D ranks, and I don't think they can handle it. He spoke as if they were not present, riling the both of them. Hey, watch what you say, team! Shouted Naruto. I can take care of myself, and so can I. Tenten added. Will both of you say that when we are surrounded with a group of hostiles with no other alternative but to fight them? A noise from behind them interrupted them, and all turned to see Tuza smiling. Hey, Naruto-san. Guy-san. Tenten-san. Guy with weird eyes-san. For some reason, Tuza had trouble remembering Niji's name, even it was the simplest after Guy's. It annoyed Niji to no end, and Naruto had a sneaking suspicion that Tuza purposely called him a different name each time. The Hyuga's eyebrows twitched, and Naruto and Tenten laughed despite their anger. Guy smiled. So how long have you been following us? The boy grinned. This was a little game Guy had made for him. The goal was to remain undetected by them as long as possible, or as long Tuza could hold out. I tracked Naruto from his house by the way. You must get up way early by the tracks and found you following something in the forest. Then I followed you here. I was starting to get bored, so I made a sound on purpose. Guy smiled and said playfully. You really are a prodigy at moving silently. It's not hard. I just cover up my sounds with yours. The Jonin shook his head. It was so much more than that. That trick didn't work on ninja his level. No academy today? Nope. Today's Origin Day, remember? Origin Day was the day celebrating the founding of the Leaf. It wasn't the most exciting celebration, but every year they had fireworks, stands of antique masks, and game booths. The Hokage would give a speech to start off the festival, and then the villagers would enjoy the rest of the night. Naruto had been once or twice, mainly just wandering around as he never had enough money for any stand or booth. Guy scratched his chin thoughtfully. Is really today? Must have slipped my mind. Naruto cleared his throat. Anyway, Tuza, it's been nice, but we gotta get back to Hokage Tower to report. You had a chore again? Are those really missions? Asked Tuza, puzzled. Naruto smiled devilishly. He took the bag holding the cat from Niji and held it in front of the boy. Actually, we caught a dangerous demon today. It was attacking everyone in sight, so they had to send strong ninja to capture it, and the Hokage picked us. Tuza's eyes were wide. Really? Can you show me? Naruto grinned wickedly and poked the bag. It started to pitch back and forth as the cat began to move violently, and it hissed as Naruto poked it again. Tuza was awed by it. Wow, it must have put up a fight. It did, but we caught it. Naruto handed the bag back to Niji, who glared at him. Anyway, we've got to back to Hokage Tower and let them deal with it. You could walk with us, if that's okay. The blonde looked at Guy, who shrugged. Civilians were certainly allowed in the Hokage Tower, but usually none had a good reason to go. Tuza bounced up exuberantly, and the group walked to their destination. Finally, Team 9 was at the door to mission report, and Guy opened it and ushered them in. The Hokage was sitting at the table, as was Iruka. Iruka-sensei, greeted Naruto, waving. This is my first time seeing you here, Iruka grinned. I have the day off from the academy, so I thought I might volunteer here. He examined the rest of the group. So this is your team, let me guess, Tenten. He pointed at Tenten, who nodded. Niji, the Hyuga regarded him blankly, and Iruka frowned at Tuza, who gaped at the Hokage. Iruka furrowed his brow. Naruto? Is this kid a part of your team? The blonde laughed. No. This is Tuza. He's the one that was being bullied and was rescued by me. He likes to come by our lessons and watch, not to mention follow us like a ghost. Tuza started at the sound of his name. Huh? What? Come on, Tuza. Quit staring at Hokageji and starting listening, teased Naruto good-naturedly. Tuza squirmed in embarrassment, but Naruto chuckled and clapped him on the back. Irika smiled at the two. They were obviously close. The Hokage, who had been talking to a chunin next to him, turned his attention to Team 9. Guy stepped forward, and the rest, even Tuza, fell into line behind him. Hokage-sama, began Guy, bowing, Team 9 has successfully completed their assigned mission. Can you call in the client? The Hokage nodded and motioned toward a ninja near the door who nodded and opened it. He said something to someone, and the immediate squeal of delight made them wince. A large lady knocked over the ninja and barreled straight for the bag in Niji's hand. He seemed to inwardly lament his luck before he threw the bag into the air. The lady caught and opened it, and she pulled out an unhappy-looking cat with a red bow tied to its ear. She hugged it, or crushed according to the cat's face, and kissed it several times. Tora, baby! Never leave mama again. Tuza looked accusingly at Naruto, who grinned back sheepishly. She exited, dragging the cat back with her. Good riddance, said Tenten. The others nodded. Now, said the Hokage, getting their attention, for your next mission, there are errands to be run, babysitting, pulling weeds. Guy cleared his throat. If I may, Hokage-sama dash, the door slammed open and interrupted him, and they turned to see Anko and Team 6. Lee waved energetically when he saw Guy, and Tamitsu, his hair cropped close now, nodded respectfully. Yakumo smiled. All right, Hokage-sama, that dumb mission is done. When can you give us a dash? Anko stopped, seeing there was another team in the room. Oh hey Guy, you were saying Guy-san? Asked the Hokage, pulling out his pipe and lighting it. I was going to ask if my team could receive a C-rank mission, Hokage-sama, said Guy, he and Tenten crossing their fingers. The Hokage seemed to consider it, but Irika intervened. Absolutely not. You've only gone on 7 missions. That's not even close to the number that genin usually have before they are assigned a C-rank, argued Irika fiercely. He was also slightly worried about Naruto's safety. Naruto, however, wanted a mission. Come on, Irika-sensei, lighten up. No. I disagree, Hokage-sama, Irika-san, Tenten said. Please don't make a big deal out of this. Big deal? You think this isn't? You could all be killed. While the three exchanged arguments, Guy nervously stood at attention to Hokage. Anko piped up, Hokage-sama, while you're at it, can you give me a C-rank? Tamitsu, who was watching Naruto and Tenten's argument with small smile, heard it and looked over. That would be most agreeable if you would do so, Hokage-sama, remarked Tamitsu in a well-cultured, surprisingly deep voice. Yakumo nodded, and Lee pumped his fists to accentuate the fact. Hokage seemed to think for another minute, even though it wasn't needed. He had been thinking it was getting close to the time the teams would be asking for more difficult missions, and had decided if they asked, he would provide. All right, he said before turning to the arguers. Irika, Naruto, Tenten. They straightened with guilty looks. Good. The old man began to sift through papers. I'll assign both of you a C-rank mission. I think it's about time. What? Exclaimed Irika, they don't have enough dash. I know the nature of your objections, Irika, but the Hokage pulled out 2 papers. These 2 teams will travel together to ensure safety until they have to separate due to mission circumstances. Irika still looked uncomfortable and would have liked to argue, but he knew it was useless. The Hokage's eyes scanned the documents. There have been reports about a bandit camp northeast of Tanzaku Town. He looked at Team 9. Your mission is to destroy it. Team 6, your mission is southwest of Tanzaku Town. A simple patrol to clear bandits from the main road. Is this agreeable? Both teams nodded. Good. Set a time and place for departure. Here is the paperwork. He handed both Anko and Guy a sheet of paper which they signed. Anko turned to her team. All right, brats, meet at the Konoha Gate 2 hours from now. Pack for an overnight mission. Lee saluted, and both Tamitsu and Yakumo nodded. Team 9, started Guy, same time, same place as Team 6. You shouldn't have to pack, though I'd advise it. We should make it back here by sundown if we travel fast enough. All 3 of them nodded. Tenten and Naruto were grinning, but Niji was blank-faced. All right, get to it. Approximately an hour and a half later, Naruto arrived at the entry gate. Tamitsu was there, leaning against the wall with arms crossed. Lee was off to the side doing push-ups and sit-ups with the encouragement of Guy, and Niji stood silently near the guard post. The blonde went to sit beside the young samurai, who glanced at him as he came closer and acknowledged him with a nod. The blonde sat down, and the pair was silent for a few minutes. However, Naruto broke it. You know, you are way too tall, the other smiled. I hear that often. He uncrossed his arms, and Naruto noticed something new. Hey, where'd you get those arm guards? Tamitsu looked down at his forearms. A plate of metal with leather straps was tied to each forearm, and the metal seemed to be engraved with faint, indiscernible etchings. I returned to my home and equipped these. I thought I would need them. He looked down at his legs. I also have shin guards. Indeed he did, and they too appeared to be made in the exact same style as the arm guards. Naruto's eyebrows rose. Wonder how they'll do when you're fighting. Tamitsu shrugged. I intend to determine that fact today. Anko showed up about 10 minutes later, swearing loudly about men in general. Yakumo arrived not long after her, and with Team 6 assembled, they grouped in front of Anko. Tenten appeared with about 3 minutes to spare, panting loudly. Sorry. Had to get a few things, she breathed, clutching her side. About time, 10-10. Shut it, Blondie. Team 9. Called Guy. They lined up, back straight. Nearby, Anko called out her team's name, and received the same reaction. Move out. The group traveled on a dirt road for a while, the genin in front, the senseis in the back conversing. Niji had activated his Byakugan, and was scanning ahead. Guy tried to make small talk with the snake mistress. So, Anko-san, how is your training of the team going? She paused before replying, well, Princess over there is a damn beast at Genjutsu but can't do jack and anything else even though I've done all I could. And it showed. Yakumo looked fitter compared to the time she passed the genin exam. But unfortunately she still lacked the power needed for even basic taijutsu. Bushy brows, of course, gets training from you, and I try to up his flexibility with snake dodging, but he just usually punches their skulls in. Anko shook her head. I don't know how the hell you do it, but you can make some damn strong people. His determination has a lot to do with it, not to mention he has no choice. He can't use chakra after all. The subject of Lee branched off into another one. How's Tamitsu doing? I've heard he can't use chakra either. Anko sighed, irritably. Actually, he can use chakra just fine. She glowered in the direction of the samurai. Guy raised an eyebrow, and she explained further, he can use chakra but outright refuses to do any ninjutsu or genjutsu. He sticks to only kenjutsu and taijutsu. I've tried to ask him why he's such an asshole about that, and he says using jutsu is against his bushido. Complete bullshit, of course. Guy frowned. That's awfully old-fashioned, before the time samurai and ninja were allies. Anko nodded. And it really gets on my nerves. Sometimes I'd like to strangle him. Can he tree walk then, since he can use chakra? Oh yeah, and he can do a lot of other damn things that require chakra but aren't ninjutsu. I'm kinda hoping to see what he can do in combat for real. Dodging gigantic venomous snakes is one thing, a bandit is another. Up ahead, Naruto was getting bored. Niji hadn't uttered a word for the hour they had been walking. Ten and Yakumo were giggling about something. Lee was busy running laps around their group, and Tamitsu wasn't one to talk. He sighed, pulled a slip of paper and a pen from his pack, and began to draw a storage seal, like one of 10 in his pack. Why he had 10 was mystifying to everyone, but the fact was he drew them faster than he could use, so they tended to gather in his pack. His tongue poked out as he concentrated on making the dimensions of the seal perfect. Naruto-san, what are you doing? Asked Tamitsu, looking at the confusing set of symbols on the paper. Naruto, deep in thought, didn't hear and continued to draw. Tamitsu blinked and waited. He repeated his question, louder this time, and the blonde jumped. Huh? What? What are you doing, Naruto-san? He looked at the half-finished seal, making a storage seal. Pardon? It's something that can hold a large amount of things without taking up much space. It could also hold your sword, and you wouldn't feel the weight. Tamitsu's eyebrows shot up. This storage seal sounds very useful, but Tamitsu patted the hilt of his katana. I appreciate my heritage and choose represent it wherever I go. No offense taken, I hope. Naruto grinned. From what? You want to look badass, go ahead. I didn't state it that vulgarly dash. You meant it though. Tamitsu smiled in amusement, and shook his head. Can't blame you, continued Naruto. If I was that tall and had a sword I'd sure as hell be showing it off. I'm pleased you understand my perspective, Naruto-san, though I can see the implications of hiding my blade. The element of surprise is a most powerful ally. Naruto nodded, liking his thinking. Naruto had thought about using the seals for surprise, and the way Tenten used them to attack had appealed to him as well. You're smarter than you look, dash, senseis. Niji's voice cut through the air. Group of 20 bandits, 300 meters ahead. The group halted. Reaffirm? Asked Guy. Niji scoped in again, mentally counting the meters, and recounted the bandits. He nodded, reaffirmed. Senseis, should we prepare to face them? Said Lee, saluting. Tamitsu shook his head, and Naruto said, maybe we can slip by if we pretend we don't know anything about them. He frowned thoughtfully and poked his headband. Also, maybe this can scare them off. I know I wouldn't like to mess with shinobi. Guy spoke up, keep the headbands. The blonde nodded. Tamitsu added his 2 cents, keep your weapon close and body loose in the occurrence they do attack. He loosened his katana in its sheath, and Lee cricked his neck and placed his hands near his holster where his spiked knuckles were stored. Tenten organized her holster without looking, making sure scrolls and projectiles were separate. Ready, brats? Asked Anko impatiently. All of the genin glanced at each other and nodded. Finally. Move out. They started off again, Niji unwillingly deactivating his dojutsu. The Byakugan would be useful in keeping tabs on the enemy, but it was visible from a distance. At about 290 meters later, they whipped around to bushes being pushed aside. A whistle pierced the air, and a single man charged at them recklessly with a giant hammer. Naruto ready to fight, but Tamitsu planted himself squarely in the man's way. Tamitsu, what are you doing? Demanded Naruto. He said nothing, and Naruto tried to move him out of the way. The man roared and swung with the hammer. Tamitsu's hand lashed out and caught the hammer's head and stopped it dead. Drawing his katana with one hand, he stabbed the man in the gut. There was shock for a moment before more men charged from the bushes behind them. The dead man had meant to die, and the teams expected their senseis to call out an order. Instead, the senseis had disappeared from the road entirely. Hidden in the brush, Guy was uncomfortable as he watched his team fight the bandits. Shouldn't we help them? He asked Anko beside him. They really could die. You worry too much, Guy, she said, casually eating dango. I bet your students are soft. Mine aren't. My team will protect yours if the brats need it. Guy scowled at the condescension and silently cheered on his team. In the unfolding melee, Tenten had unsealed her staff and was knocking opponents unconscious. Lee was stabbing and crushing his enemies simultaneously with his spiked knuckles, and Tamitsu whirled his katana in deadly arcs as Yakumo pointed her fingers and made men fall to the ground screaming. Naruto and Neji were back to back, the blonde throwing banter whenever he could. Man, shape up team. That last one nearly got you. Quiet. Handle your responsibilities before you complain about mine, Uzumaki-san. Naruto laughed, and punched a man in the gut and kneed his face. 2 men attempted to stab him in the back, but Neji saw them. Their knives were inches from Naruto when Neji grabbed their wrists and threw them over his shoulder. With lightning jabs, the men were out cold. Like I said, Uzumaki-san, handle your responsibilities. Naruto couldn't help but grin. I owe you one, team, a fact I will remember. Neji ducked under a wild swing of a sword and pivoted to strike at the attacker's chest. He ended up next to Tenten, who was panting. He gave her a curt nod before parrying a dagger swipe and flipping over the man, pressing Tenketsu on his neck in the process. Lee grinned as Neji landed near him, and Tamitsu and Yakumo would have greeted him in some way if they hadn't been tied in battle with 5 bandits. The Hyuga frowned as he noticed the bandits' thinning numbers. Naruto noticed too. Where you guys going, huh? He taunted. Scared? The bandits were, and many slunk back into the forest once they sensed how outclassed they were. Only the foolhardy remained, and soon they were either unconscious, dead, or whimpering from Yakumo's genjutsu. Tamitsu cleaned his blade on the shirt of a dead bandit, and sighed. I wish our senseis had not hidden in this time of need, he said. I did not feel like fighting so soon. We weren't hiding, big gun, shouted Anko, she and Guy emerging from their hiding place. We were observing you. There's a difference there, albeit a minuscule one. He nudged one of the bandits with his foot. So how did we do? Tenten looked green at the sight of the bodies, and she lay a hand on Naruto's shoulder and squeezed so that she didn't vomit. You passed by my low-ass standards, she said, yawning. Gotta admit, you 3 could be a lean, mean, killing machine in about 100 years, give or take 10. Yakumo rolled her eyes. In that time, you'd be too crotchety to care. Shut it, princess. Yakumo shook her head and snorted, and Lee bounced on the balls of his heels, eager to move on. None of Team 6 or Neji seemed affected by the bodies, but Naruto held back slight nausea while Tenten again tried not to vomit. Guy noticed. Will you be alright, Tenten? He asked. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. And you, Naruto? I'm fine, managed Naruto, pinching his arm for a distraction. Guy nodded and was about to ask Neji before he said, I will be fine, sensei. Do not worry about me. Then how is your team, Anko? Asked Guy. HM? They're fine. How do you know? I take them to TI sometimes. They see stuff there that is nothing compared to this. Guy's eyes widened. Wait, you take them to torture and interrogation? Anko shrugged. Yeah. It's a damn life experience. Bushy Brow's reaction to it at first was pretty funny, too. Isn't that illegal? I don't know. Don't really care. Ibiki doesn't care either. Team 6 mildly watched as the senseis argued, but Tenten's nausea finally got the better of her, and she ducked behind a tree. Retching noises came from behind it, and Yakumo worriedly went to her. Naruto winced, her retching not doing any favors for his stomach. Finally, she came out, Yakumo patting her back. Her face was pale and sweaty. I'll be good in a few minutes, answered Tenten to Naruto's concerned face. Not feeling too well right now. He smiled and turned back to the senseis who still argued. You're taking children into TI. Are you insane? Guy demanded. They're shinobi and can see whatever the hell the world offers. And they ain't children. Tamitsu is the oldest, and he's only 14. A kid compared to you or me. Anko faced Guy fully and pointed a finger in his face. Look here. What I do with my students is my business. What you do with your damn students is your damn business. So keep out of my business. Are you two about finished? Asked Tamitsu exasperatedly. There seems to be no end in sight. Shut up, begun before I make you do your exercises or whatever you call it. Tamitsu flinched at the word exercises, and color drained from his face. She faced Guy again. Are we clear? You keep your nose clean, and I'll keep mine clean. Got it? With reluctance, Guy answered, got it. About damn time. It was mid-afternoon when the two teams parted at a branch in the road. Lee and Yakumo waved as they went their way, and Tamitsu offered his hand to Naruto, who looked at it perplexedly. He shook it slowly and met the other's eye. It was pleasant to meet you, Naruto-san, however short it was. The blonde grinned slightly. Likewise, and I'm never gonna get used to looking this far up. Tamitsu chuckled, a good sign. He nodded, and Team 6 slowly disappeared down the path. The group watched them until they were out of sight, and Naruto shook his head. I swear, I don't know whether to respect the guy or be scared shitless of him. I take it you're referring to Tamitsu-san? Asked Niji. The blonde nodded. Likewise. Sheesh, he scares you too, team? Looks like we got something in common. That is the only thing. True. Naruto turned towards Guy. Just how close are we to the camp? The Jonin, who seemed distracted, jerked. Oh, we're close enough. Niji should have it in sight in about an hour or so. The blonde nodded, and Tenten muttered something unintelligible, which apparently Naruto heard, and the two began to bicker. Guy couldn't hear, however, as he replayed the answer to a question he'd asked Anko out of earshot. It related to Tamitsu, and Guy had seen him flinch as Anko had used the word excises, wondering what the word meant to him. Guy had asked her. She had shrugged. Hell if I know. All I know, those things involve killing and aren't something Big Un likes. He's hard up about details, but it's funny, really. He'll chop any bastard down in combat. But mention excises and it's like you've damn stabbed him. Guy had been flabbergasted. You're the sensei, and you don't know anything about that? Did you even read his profile? She'd leveled a deathly glare at him. I read his damn profile just like you, Guy. He's from the land of iron and came here when he was 7 or so. He lives with his dad and could kick ass with the sword even when he first entered the academy. That sound about right? Guy had muttered and let the question die, but his puzzlement hadn't. Excising meant taking out surgically, and Anko had mentioned that an excise to Tamitsu meant to kill something. Or someone. Guy frowned pensively. He had a sinking feeling that whatever exactly these excises were, they weren't good. Far from it. Sensei? You alright? You look a little pale, asked Tenten, pulling away from Naruto. The Jonin started for the second time, and shook himself of the troubling thoughts. Tamitsu was Anko's business, not his. I'm fine. Thanks, Tenten, he replied. She nodded, the bickering stopping for the moment. Niji hadn't stopped scanning with his dojutsu, and he remained silent. Naruto stifled a yawn as the day wore on. Guy smirked. The camp was most likely nearer than the blonde thought, and as Guy expected, Niji spoke a minute later. I see the camp, or at least the outer wall. He directed them into the forest around them, and hurried forward. After a few minutes he reported again, I can see all of the camp now. It's 500 meters off, and there are about 30 people inside its walls. 20 or so tents are inside. He looked pointedly at the Jonin. This isn't going to be easy, Guy nodded. I know. Any suggestions? Tenten shrugged. Can we go charging in there? There's only 30. Naruto considered it. We could. I can make a big group of clones that'll keep the bandits busy for a while. Do you want to do that, Sensei? Guy shook his head. No. I don't want you Guy to get hurt. Can you think of another way? A sneakier way? Naruto hummed and tapped his nose. He asked Niji, team, what does the camp look like again? Niji rolled his eyes and heaved a dramatic sigh, but he retold the camp's description. 23 tents surrounded by walls. Crude wooden walls, I venture. How tall? 30 feet. Naruto whistled lowly. Tall. Damn, I don't have any ideas. They pondered the situation again before the blonde furrowed his brow. Hey, could we bring down the walls on top of the camp? Guy's face didn't betray his pride in his student, and Tenten was nodding her agreement. Using what? Asked Niji derisively. Our bare hands? Naruto ignored him and pulled explosive tags from his pack. Niji blinked and then saw his plan. Do you want me to find weak points? That'd be nice, team. Niji scowled at his nickname but did what he was ordered. Tenten likewise pulled her own explosive tags from her pack, and they took in their situation. We have 15 tags, stated Naruto, counting the pile of tags they've made. Team, how many do you think it'd take to take down the walls? I see at least 30 points at which the wall is supported. Naruto groaned. Not enough. Sensei, do you have any? Guy shook his head, and he groaned again. Tenten, you have anything? She scratched her head for a moment before pausing. I might. Niji, how are those points supported? He scoped in, squinting instinctively. There is a supporting log on the inside and outside of the point. They're planted into the ground and leaning against the wall. He frowned as he tried to describe it simply. The two logs in the ground form a triangle, if that is any use. The wall is right between the two supporting logs. Yes, Tenten suddenly grinned. My idea works. She glanced at the tags, reading their explosiveness ratings. Good. These things should be powerful enough to punch through the wall, and to the other log if we plant them on the outside. That sounds easy enough. She glanced at Guy. Safe too. He smiled proudly, and they quickly distributed the tags between themselves. They raced toward the camp, and once it came into view, they halted. They faced the camp's eastern wall. Up close, it really was crude. Mud filled in some of the gaps in the uneven log wall, and trash filled the others. Smoke from fires was visible through the tree's foliage, and through a few empty gaps, Naruto glimpsed an open entrance at the other side. Not far off to their right was one of the supporting points. Tenten opened her mouth to speak, but Guy shushed her. He mouthed silently. Go. In two groups, they broke off in opposite directions, Guy and Naruto in one and Tenten and Niji in the other. The spot where the logs came together were 15 feet high, and so they had to run up the wall to plant the tag. All the while, not one of them made a noise. After 10 tense minutes, the groups met at the spot they had diverged. Tenten gave a thumbs up, and Naruto grinned. They hid in the trees, and Tenten counted down from 3 on her fingers. After 1, she triggered the tags. A series of explosions resounded through the air, and huge plumes of smoke and fire erupted from the walls. Before seeing the results, Tenten took out smoke bombs and dashed them against the ground, creating a huge smoke cloud. Come on, let's get out of here. Naruto, however, saw something that twisted his stomach. The walls still stood, and the bandits inside were racing to extinguish the fires. He jumped down from the tree and sped toward the walls despite the calls of his team. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 clones appeared in motion beside him, and he shouted above the fire's roars and the bandits' cries. Push the walls over. The clones nodded, and 7 broke off on either side. Naruto didn't dare try to push over the entrance, hoping that it would fall once the other walls had. He placed his hands on the eastern wall, and clones around him did the same. Through an empty gap, Naruto saw a bandit turn and look at him. A necklace of a silver bird hung from his neck, and the bandit shouted to his comrades to kill Naruto. Gritting his teeth, Naruto strained his arms against the wall's huge mass. He could hear the clattering of weapons, and one clone next to him gasped and vanished as a sword snaked through a gap and into its gut. Naruto winced at the memories but gave a massive heave. Push! The wall creaked ominously but did not fall. Another clone went down, but Naruto ignored it, shouting and coughing through the smoke. Push! The wall creaked again, and slowly Naruto felt gravity take over. He jumped back just as a sword stabbed at him, and its wielder screamed as the wall fell on top of him. Naruto grimaced, but he was inwardly proud of his actions. His team came up from behind him, and he shot them a grin. Hey, about time you joined me. Tenten, face set angrily, marched up to him and slapped him. Before he could feel hurt, she grabbed him in a headlock and ruffled his hair. You little devil, you had me damn worried there. You could have told us what you were doing. Guy shook his head. He wouldn't have had time to do what he did then. I'm glad you did it, Naruto. You have my approval. Naruto beamed, and Tenten clapped him on the back. Congrats, Blondie. You dash. She turned her head and widened her eyes. Move. She pushed Naruto to the side and locked knives with the bandit. He had a mad smile on his lips, and half of his face was badly burned. Naruto looked up to see a familiar bird necklace hanging from his neck. He moved to help her, but then Tenten gained the upper hand and sliced the bandit's gut open. He stumbled backwards, and she kicked him into the burning wall. He cried out as fire engulfed him, and then he was silent. Naruto stood slowly, watching Tenten as she stared into the fire at the bandit. You okay, Tenten? She didn't answer. Tenten? Niji laid a hand on her shoulder, a surprisingly warm gesture, and she pulled away. Her face was pale and sweaty again, and she stumbled as if she were drunk. She braced an arm against a tree and hunched over and retched for the second time that day. This time, however, her sickness didn't stop. The image of the bandit's body flashed in her mind every time she tried to suppress it. She fell to a knee, and Niji knelt by her, hand on her back. She weakly apologized. Sorry, Niji. I just can't stand the sight of it. He nodded, and Naruto and Guy came over. They helped her up, but she needed help to walk. She leaned heavily against Niji, who offered to carry her. No, I'm fine. You don't like fine buns, Naruto said. Let Niji carry you until you feel better. And puke all over him? I don't think so. It is fine, Tenten-san. Besides, we will go faster if you allow me to carry you. She grumbled but climbed onto Niji's back. With one last glance at the fires that had been the camp, they headed back toward the village. She buried her head into his shoulder, and soon she was asleep. Naruto looked at her and chuckled. She's asleep. I hope she has good dreams. She would need them, Nei said. It was sunset when they reached the fork where they had departed with Team 6. Tenten had slept the entire time, muttering every so often. When they reached the fork, however, she whispered, You can let me down now, Niji. He nodded, and slowly slid her off his back. She stumbled onto the ground and gripped his shoulder for support. She smiled weakly, but it was she could manage. Thanks, Niji. It was nothing. Can you walk the rest of the way? Asked Guy concernedly. Yeah. The moon was out when the village gate finally came into view. Naruto sighed, relieved. Thank God. We're here. He looked up at the sky. Hope we didn't miss the dash. A firework streamed into the air and exploded, sounding much like a paper bomb. Tenten gazed up as the sparks dissipated. The next was reflected in her eyes. I've always loved the fireworks, she murmured. Niji looked at her. She had her head hung, looking at the ground. She lifted her head and met his eyes for what seemed like an hour. She broke it by looking back up at another firework going off. Tenten. She looked back at Niji. Don't let this affect you. She nodded emptily. Soon, when they were inside the village, Guy addressed them. It's too late to turn in the report that I've yet to write. Report to the Hokage Tower at 9 o'clock in the morning. Then you have rest of the day off. They nodded. Naruto waved as he walked in the direction of his apartment. Bye, Niji, I'm too tired to call you team. And Tenten, be strong, okay? She smiled wanly. Guy jumped onto the rooftops and waved before he too disappeared, leaving Tenten and Niji. Bye, Niji. She took a few steps before she halted. Sorry about today. There is no need, Tenten reassured Niji. We're teammates, remember? What if Naruto sneaks into library chunin exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.